right. It looks like we're live. I think. Okay, well, for anyone who's watching, welcome to the first ever Frightbox Recording YouTube live stream where I'll be answering a few viewer questions live right here. And if you have questions, you could jump on in and ask questions, and I'll be hanging out with you for at least the next hour. Hello, Steven. Good to see you here. Glad that you're digging the channel and digging the content. That means the world to me. So I apologize. I'm new to this whole live thing. I've done it on YouTube a bunch of times, but the first time doing it on YouTube. All right, Steven's saying I'm live. Very good. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into it. We had a pre-submitted comment here that says, "Hey, Bobby, going to listen to you while I work." This comes from Mr. Jimmy Whip 3D, trying to decide if I have the time and personal motivation to join the Mix Crypt. Love the content. Yes, the Frightbox Mix Crypt is open this week. It closes tomorrow night at midnight. And after that, enrollment will be closed and you can no longer join. It depends on what you're looking for. What we do is every single month, we mix a brand new song, multi-tracks included. There's also a group live coaching call every single month where you can hang out with me live, ask questions. And then also, and Steve is a member of the Academy. Very good. Very good. And then also we do member mix critiques every single month as well. So if that's something you're interested in, there's a link below in this video's description where you can click it. If you're watching the replay, you can click it, and you can learn more about the Frightbox Mix Crypt. Again, enrollment closes tomorrow night, which is actually August 26th at midnight. So, okay. With that being said, let's jump into the pre-submitted questions, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so the first question is this. What mouse/keyboard pad is that? I think he's referring to the actual, in the community post, I posted my actual rig that I use, that I'm talking to you through right now, when I'm recording and mixing at home. And people asked a few different questions, and one of them was what mouse and keyboard pad I'm currently using. And actually, the mouse and keyboard pad I'm using is one that came with the desk. This is actually a stand-up desk by Uplift Desks. Little pricey. This desk cost me around $1,200, but completely worth it. I mean, I'm constantly sitting behind a computer. So for me, it's important to get some movement in, and I've been procrastinating. I've just been too lazy to order one, put it together, completely reset up my desk. And yeah, I got an Uplift desk, and this desk pad came with the desk. But if you go on Amazon, from what I could see, you can get them for like 10 bucks, 20 bucks. It's just a giant mouse pad. And that's what you see in the picture in the community post for my rig, my home studio rig. So hopefully that makes sense, Mr. AA. Again, I know that wasn't much help. It's just the one it's the Uplift desk pad that comes with my desk. So nothing special, but gets the job done, protects the desk, and all that good stuff. Thank you for your question. Okay, so Steven says, my question is, are you still using the Metric Halo Channel Strip 3? I bought it because you seem to go for it all the time. Dude, that is one of my favorite plugins of all time. Yes, I still use it. I use a few different things. I'm a huge fan of the Slate Virtual Mix Rack as well, if I want to go a little more analog in terms of feel. But the Metric Halo Channel Strip is a classic. It doesn't do any analog like saturation, or at least as far as I know, or emulating, but it sounds phenomenal. It has that SSL kind of snap to it, and I love how simple the interface is. My only complaint, and this isn't even really a complaint, is that the gate is very on or off. So sometimes if I'm working with a natural snare and I want to use the gate as an expander, I have to use a secondary gate. But that's my only complaint, man. I think it's a phenomenal plugin, 1,000,000% worth the money. I've been using it for well over a decade, and the plugin has been around since, I believe, 1998, so it has stood the test of time. Good stuff. Okay, so we got some comments rolling in. Mr. Redwood Lloyd says, "Hi, Bobby. Thanks for dispelling audio myths and making concepts simple enough to understand. I'm interested in pursuing producing rock music as a career, but I'm not sure where to start. Thanks." Okay, dude. First thing is, do not go to school for audio. I'm just going to say that. Now, I earned my 4-year degree. I have my bachelor's in audio production, and although I do not regret it at all, I had a lot of amazing professors, met a lot of great people, a great internship. You don't need it in the real world. And to be honest with you, a lot of these kids that go to these schools like Full Sail and SAE. I get emails all the time of people looking for work, looking for internships. And in my opinion, the best way to go is just buy a simple rig and start working with your own music and clients. And as you get better, and the more people you work with, you will become known and you will work your way into the industry. That's my opinion. I've been doing this for a long time, 16 years now, roughly. 16, 17 years even, if you really count when I started. And yeah, that would be my main piece of advice here is to just start doing it. So, okay, we have a lot of comments coming in. I'm going to try and get to every single comment here. But guys, thank you for asking these questions. So Mr. Redwood Lloyd, hopefully that answers your question. I would love to do more videos on this topic. I've just noticed it's funny in the Mixcrypt, people are really interested in this. So we talk a lot about this in the Mixcrypt, but when I talk about it on YouTube and make YouTube videos on like music business or running a studio, it's like crickets. I don't know what it is. No one seems to care as a whole, which is fine. You know, I think most of the viewers, at least on my channel, they're just recording their own music. They just want their music to sound cool. But I love talking about this stuff. So thank you for the question. And hopefully that helps. Okay, so we have a question from Brad, musician of 20 years, and I'm relatively new to mixing. I'm blown away by what can be achieved with free / stock plugins. Your channel has been a gold mine for me. Awesome, dude. So happy to hear that. Yeah, I do have a YouTube video where I show you a mix that I've done with all stock plugins in Reaper, and you can achieve amazing sounding results with just stock plugins. Now, of course, I do have other plugins that are not stock, but I try to not get too carried away. You know, it's so easy to keep buying new plugins and new plugins and new plugins. So I try to keep my options limited intentionally. And for me, it's all about knowing the plugins that I have inside and out. Like I use a lot of the stock Pro Tools plugins still. And when I'm in Reaper, I use a ton of the stock Reaper plugins. So you are right. You could achieve 100% professional results just with stock plugins. And I am not an expert in video production, but I've had to learn it for the channel and for some of the work I do out of my studio. And I'm learning that video and like cinematography, it's very similar. When it comes to plugins and gear, it's very similar to audio. So I'm going through it myself and learning myself in that domain. So good stuff, man. Thank you. Thank you for the comment. I'm happy to hear that. Okay, so Jimmy Whipped 3D says, what's the best way to train your ear? I hear in your videos you say things like, I need to take out some 2K in that range, and others say that too. Dude, just keep doing it, right? I mean, I mix... Oh man, I mean, this year I've calmed it down a little just because I'm focusing on YouTube and my secondary business. But at one point, and then this next year is going to be going back to craziness. I was mixing like 5 songs a week minimum for clients, minimum. So when you mix that amount of music, your ear becomes trained. And the trick is to mix a different music by different musicians. If you mix only your music over and over and over again, you kind of lose sight of the big picture. So in other words, by constantly listening to different source guitar tones, different source drum tones, you start to have an ear for what 2K sounds like, you know, or what 8K sounds like, or what 500 hertz sounds like. And hopefully that helps. I'm just gonna make sure my AC, guys, give me 1 second. I'm gonna make sure the AC is kicking. It's hot in my room. Give me 1 second. Tati, did you switch to AC? Okay, it's weird. Went back up to 72. Guys, this is live. This is live. Sorry for that. It's just super hot in my studio, in my home studio here. Okay. Again, guys, I'm going to try and answer all of these questions, but there are a ton, and I'm going to keep going through here. Okay, so Jimmy, hopefully that helped you. All right. Up next in line is going to be Carlos. Hey, Bobby, any tips on making drums not sound weak? Using the right drum sounds that are right at the source. I know that's very vague. Carlos, are you referring to live drums or MIDI drums? Because those are two completely different things. Let me know. Steven says, I saw that on your recent video, so I wasn't sure if the metric was still in the mix. Oh, dude, the metric is never going to leave the mix. And what Jimmy's referring to, or Steven was referring to, is Metric Halo channel strip. I love it. I actually got that idea, the idea of using it from one of my favorite producers, Andy Sneap, and I bought that thing on a trial in like 2010 or something, and it's one of my favorite plugins. I use other ones too, don't get me wrong. You know, sometimes I like to change it up just to kind of get out of my comfort zone, but that is my comfort zone. That's my go-to and will probably always be my go-to. I like a lot of classic plugins. if they're still in use all these years later, there's probably a reason why. I don't like gimmicky plugins personally, that's why I love the Slate plugins. They're very functional. I'm a huge fan of stock plugins. I really like a lot of the Waves plugins, the classic style Waves plugins. And yeah, I like to keep it simple. All right, my buddy Addison Bjork is in the house. How you doing, Addison? When are you mixing Shift Lifter? When are you mixing the Shift Lifter project? One of the best new metal bands ever. Yeah, Addison is a good friend of mine. I've worked with him many times in the studio with his band Iron Sentiment back in the day, and we have a lot of funny inside jokes. If you're ever working with bands in the studio and you spend hours and hours with people, you start to come up with your own lingo and your own inside jokes. And Shift Lifter is a recent one where we were talking about different new metal sounding band names. And yeah, man, we're going to work on that Shift Lifter record, totally. I'm actually really excited. It turns out I'm going to be producing the new Tombs album. I did the last one, and I just talked to the singer today, and they asked me to do the next one. So I'm pumped for 2023. Is that the next year that's coming up? So yes, that's what's next on the chopping block. And Addison, I know we're doing that tune as well. Okay. Hello, Shay. Good to see you here, man. I'm sure I'm going to be seeing you on our Mixcrypt live call on Saturday as well. So it's good to see you here as well. Okay, so Barron's Hymn says, I posted the comment already, but will you do it again here? In VMR, there's preamps. Okay, yes, in the virtual mix rack there are preamps. Actually, in this mix here, the heck? Okay, hopefully I'm still live. I have one on my drum bus. So let's take a listen to these drums. So I have the New York preamp set to something like it's like a kind of like on console, and I think I have it on tube, or it's emulating a tube. I don't remember. All I know is that it sounds awesome and it adds a little bit of grit. So that's the thing. When you're recording digitally, like we all do with a basic interface, your recordings are going to be very clean. So you have to muck them up and add character with saturation. It could be a stock plugin. I'm a huge fan of the Slate stuff just because it simplifies things and you have everything there in one place. But yeah, man, that's why I do use console emulation, preamp emulation, all kinds of stuff, if that's what you're asking. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, all right, I'm going to try and... Let's see. Sorry, guys, I'm just backtracking here. I want to make sure I get as many of these as possible. Hello, Serge. Good to see you. Okay, and then Barron's is listing all the preamps in the Slate Virtual Mix Rack. Let's talk about Reaper in the house. Dude, I've been meaning to reach out to you, man. I really like your channel. I came across a few of your something about mixing drums in Reaper, editing drums in Reaper, because I was looking up tutorials on how to edit drums in Reaper because I'm a Pro Tools guy. And dude, we should do something one day. I really like your channel, and it's super informative, and I like your stuff. So thanks for joining the live stream. Okay, Steven asks, what are your go-to IRs? There are so many out there. Well, Steven, I make my own impulse responses. And as a matter of fact, I make them available for free to everyone on YouTube. If you go, just type in any of my guitar-related videos, like Frightbox, just type in Frightbox recording guitar or something on YouTube, and you'll find in the description, you could download mine. Now, I'm not that much of a stickler. It's just, I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm weird. Maybe I'm just really picky. I don't know. All I know is that most of the impulse responses are pretty terrible. It's gotten better, though. A lot of the newer amp sims I'm hearing come with better sounding presets and IRs, but for a while, it was just really muffly, weird, phasey impulse response to me. Okay, me personally, I like a guitar tone that's very open and not nasally in one specific frequency range. I don't want to have to over EQ my heavy guitar tracks. That's just my own personal preference. So I just started making my own. Again, I know it's not cool to like V30s right now. I know it's not cool to like Mesa Boogie cabs, but dude, I'm still coming up with new tones with that rig, personally. I do use other amps as well. Sometimes I'll use Orange cabs. I'll use Marshall cabs. My buddy Ben Karras, who does a lot of work out of my studio, he's a speaker nut. Like, he's always trying out different speakers. And the differences are there, don't get me wrong, but I always go back to that V30. So I've made IRs of that cab, my favorite cab, which is my own cab that I have out of my studio, and those are the ones that I use. Give them a shot. I think you'll like them. Again, just go on YouTube, Frightbox Recording, impulse response, or Frightbox Recording. Yeah, even type in Frightbox Recording IRs or impulse responses, and you'll be able to find my free IR easily in the video's descriptions. Okay, so Mr. Redwood Lloyd asks, one last question. What are the advantages of using Reaper over Pro Tools? Dude, all DAWs do the same things. I will say this, I'm a longtime Pro Tools user. It's what I started on. It's what I'm comfortable with. I do use Reaper as well, but to be honest, I really only use it for live recording. And the reason why is Reaper is 5 million times more stable than Pro Tools. I would never trust Pro Tools recording a band live at a venue, personally. Reaper, I've never in my life had Reaper crash, ever. So, and it's light, really light on CPU. So for a while, my buddy Ryan and I were tracking bands live at venues or like small bars, and we had a little rig that we built, and then we built 2 of them, and you could stick Reaper on the cheapest. We bought like a $300 laptop, and I was recording 16 tracks of audio like nothing. So for me, it's a great tool. But other people like Mr. Let's Talk About Reaper, check out his YouTube channel. It's phenomenal if you want to learn more about Reaper. He's all in on Reaper. So he's doing what I do in Pro Tools, just all in Reaper. Reaper's more cost effective. Pro Tools is very expensive, and they just made it more expensive, which is insane. So right now I'm on Pro Tools. I've been on Pro Tools since 2006. I don't know if I'm going to be there forever. It depends on what Avid decides to do. So there's no disadvantage. I would say if you're starting from scratch, to be honest with you, I would go with Reaper. That's if I were a kid now, or if I were starting out audio production, I would definitely start with either Reaper, Studio One, or if you're a Mac guy, maybe Logic. So hopefully that helps. Okay, yapping up a storm. Okay, so moving right along. Hello, Mr. Behrens, if I haven't said hi already. Okay, so Richie asks this, do you drop the IR wave file in the presets? No, you need an IR loader. Now, most amp sims come with IR loaders pre-built in these days. And in that, let me just show you. I'll show you right now. So let me go to a DI here. So I'm gonna pull up, I don't know. Let's pull up, where is it? I have so many plugins. Oh my God, I need to cleanse my list. I need to cleanse my plugins list here. All right, so the TS, people make fun of me all the time on my videos saying, why are you using that outdated TSC audio plugin? Dude, you know how many people ask me, like I'll mix records and they're like, what the hell's the guitar tone? It's so sick, and it's this plugin, you know? I have some newer ones, and I think a lot of it is just hype, to be honest with you. A lot of these newer amp sims, yes, they're great, but I don't hear a difference, to be honest with you. To me, it's all about the IR. Okay, so let me answer Mr. Richie. Richie, so I'm in my plugin here, right? The TSC audio, and most amp sims are similar. Going into the cabinet section here, and right now there's a stock IR loaded. I'm gonna go into my browser, and I'm gonna go into my, let's see here, documents. Depends on where, you have to make sure you put them in the right spot in your computer, by the way. Go here. Sorry, I just rearranged this computer. There are things in different places than they used to be. Give me 1 second, guys. I just gotta find this. Installers, there we go. Impulse responses. Okay, so now I'm going into IRs. Let me go into my own IRs. 57 number 1, and it's loaded up. It's that simple. You just have to load it in the IR loader portion of your plugin, okay? Now, there might be, I know there are standalone IR loaders. I'm sure there are free ones out there, and you do the same exact thing. But every amp sim I've ever used that's come out in the past 10 years has its own IR loader. Because remember, an amp sim is really, to break it down simply, you have the preamp section, and there's a power amp section sometimes that you could tweak, and then you have the cabinet section, and then the IR loads into the cabinet section. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, guys, again, I'm going to try and get to every question here. I'm new to this YouTube live thing. You know, I do lives in the Frightbox Mix Crypt, but it's a much more intimate group, so it's much easier to manage the comments coming in. So I'm going to try and get to everyone, but thank you for coming today. Okay. So Monolith Official, what is your approach to EQ a really low-tuned guitar? I use an 8-string in B standard with 7-string F and 8. All right, so low-tuned stuff. Addison, thank you for the super chat. Thank you. And he says, grab yourself a spin drift. Thanks, dude. I might be grabbing one during this call. Right now, I'm rocking some half decaf coffee, if you guys can see that. I don't know if you can even see it. Yeah. And then once I'm done with this, I'm going to switch to spin drift. So it's like how some people switch from caffeine to alcohol, depending on what time of the day. I switch from caffeine to spindrift. Okay, let me backtrack here a little. When I answer this dude had a good question here. He goes, for me, it can be tough to get a strong tone that's not too muddy and boxy. All right, dude, a lot of people ask me about this, and you're going to find everyone's going to have their own style. I don't really think about this. Here's how I judge it, okay? The tighter the guitar player, the tighter the playing or the better the editing, the more low end I can allow into the mix. It doesn't matter if it's in standard E tuning, drop D tuning, drop C tuning, F sharp, drop G. I've never noticed, I don't have rules for that personally. But the sloppier the playing, the more I have to roll off because the messier the low end will be. So if I'm recording like an old school death metal thing that's maybe live, like if I'm recording them live in the studio and there's no editing and no click track, there's no way I'm going to have 80 hertz and 70 hertz kicking on those guitars, especially if they're, if it's technical stuff. I'm going to have to roll off a little more aggressively to like 100, 120, 150. If it's a well-produced track and I'm there making sure all the parts are tight, everything is in sync, I can allow down to 80 hertz, 70 hertz, sometimes even 60 hertz. I know when I was doing a lot of the Gent, when Gent was hot back in the day, I would allow more and more low end because everything is so edited and tight that the low end becomes really interlocked easily. That's my approach. Again, I know there are guys out there that follow different philosophies, but that's my approach, man. So make sure the playing is tight. That will definitely help. So hopefully that helps. All right. The X50 is free? I didn't know that. Interesting. I'm waiting for them to, they haven't updated it in a while. And I was lucky that it's still working on this OS, but when I'm forced to upgrade with my next computer, I might not be able to use it, which would be a bummer. Okay, so Mr. Thomas says, I've been programming MIDI drums using Drum Gizmo and recording bass and guitar. My question is, have you ever used the free DAW known as Ordor? I currently use it with Windows and love it. Dude, I didn't know you could use that on Windows. I actually, as an experiment, downloaded it on my Ubuntu machine, which is a Linux-based operating system, and I just messed with it for 5 seconds. I've gone through phases throughout my career of trying to leave Pro Tools, and every time I try, I give up, to be honest with you, just because, here's the thing, and I'm gonna make a video on this. People ask me all the time, why are you using Pro Tools? It's so outdated, it's so expensive. Here's my honest opinion. Number one, I know it inside and out. I've been using it since the dawn of time. I also collaborate with other engineers, and most pro engineers use Pro Tools. I have to be compatible. I don't want to ask them to send me WAV files. It just makes more sense. Also, I have a team that works with me at the studio, and we all use Pro Tools. Now, yes, Pro Tools is expensive, but the amount of time and money I would lose switching is not worth it right now. Now, if Avid keeps increasing prices or does something to really, really aggravate me, then when the pain of keeping it becomes greater than switching, then I'll switch. But right now, the pain of switching is far greater than where I'm currently at, if that makes sense. So I've messed with Ardora, I own Logic, I own Reaper, I even owned Cubase for a while. I messed around with Studio One, and they're all great, dude. They're all great. So it really doesn't matter what you use. I will say this though, when it comes to working with real musicians in the real world, in real time, I do prefer Pro Tools. There's the way that it edits, the way that it handles grouping. I cannot wait until Reaper comes out with where you can edit on a track. I know you could group the clips. I know you could do that. I know you could group the regions or whatever, but I want track-based editing for Reaper. When they implement that, that's going to change the game for me personally. I'm still waiting on that though. So it's just my own 2 cents. Okay. All right. Let's see. So Steven asks, Bradat asked about different types of compression. What is your process for deciding which one to use, or do you use the same across the board? Great question, man. Different compressors have slightly different flavors. So the way I think about it is like an SSL style compressor is going to be a little snappier. Something like an 1176 is going to be a little more gentle as far as how it handles peaks. It's a little slower sounding. I know that's not technical as far as like audio, like the technicality of how audio works, but they all have their own character. So get to know a handful that you own, and then you'll make your own decision. So for example, I love on drums, like for example, in this mix, On the snare, I'm rocking the distressor. I really love the sound of a distressor on a snare drum. I also love the sound of a metric halo channel strip, but that just comes from experience. I'm not a huge fan personally of using something like an 1176 only on a snare. If I want to really smack it, I'll use something like this first. And then I'll add an 1176 on top of it, because 1176 is not as aggressive. So that's my answer to that. A lot of people ask that, and that is a great question. I don't think about it too much as far as a technical, because the truth is that they all, even in the real world, if you have two different pieces of, if you have two 1176s, not even in plugins, in an actual studio, they will sound slightly different. That's why guys like Chris Lord-Alge have their favorite pieces of gear and they never change it, because they know them inside and out. And it's the same thing kind of in the box. You know, these different plugins have different characters, and it just depends on what your ear likes to hear. And there are no rules. That's the beauty of this. Everyone has their own micro tastes. Their little, you know, I could say I love a distressor on a snare, and you might try it and hate it. You know, I don't know. It depends on what your ear, what you prefer, what your palate is. That's what the sounds are. What sounds are palatable to you. So hopefully that makes sense. All right. Okay, so moving right along. Okay, wow, we got a lot of comments in here. Again, guys, I'm gonna try and get to as many as possible. All right, Alessandro says, hey, Bobby, will a King Kelly album come out sooner? I love Jeff and Ramona, ain't gonna make it. Dude, I gotta tell my buddy Steve, he's gonna really be happy to hear that. For anyone who's watching, I used to be in a band called King Kelly. We were around from 2010 to 2015 in reality. And, you know, life happens. I was busy with production. We all have full-time jobs, and we kind of like just went our own ways, but my singer and I will still meet up and do projects from time to time. And we have some things in the works. Now that like things are settling down, the house, I just bought a house. We're in the middle of doing renovations. Once the renovations die down, we might start doing some stuff. We actually are all meeting up. The original band is meeting up on the 24th of this month of September, and we might do some stuff. I'll probably never do an album, because honestly, man, albums make 0% sense in 2022 or 23. So we'll probably do EPs, maybe like an EP here, maybe a single here, and that's the goal. I miss those guys. It was the favorite band I had ever. It was my favorite band I had ever been a part of, and yeah, we'll do something. So I'm glad to hear you like that song, man. That makes me really happy. So when I met up with Steve to write that, we hadn't written or performed in years, and it just kind of flew out of us. So I'm looking forward to doing more playing. I know I say it every year. I'm like, I'm going to get back to playing guitar again. But things get crazy, you know? But dude, thank you again. And stay tuned. We'll definitely have some stuff in the works. All right. So Jimmy says this: I'm more of a fan of the newer, I guess, process style of metal. I know you're more of an old school analog, real sounding stuff. Do you have individuals in the Crypt community that focus more? We do both, okay? Here's the thing with the Crypt. My goal is this, and I always tell people this. Number one, every song we do was produced, for the most part, in my project studio. So you're not gonna be getting multi-tracks recorded out of a pro studio. You're gonna be working with the same multi-tracks that I've recorded and that I've produced. Then I break down, every month I break down the mix of the song and I give you those raw multi-tracks. And we do everything from gent to like old school death metal to even like pop rock. We just did a song by my buddies in a band called Poeta. We did that last month. Anything that's rock or metal related. But the thing is, you can't, it's not good to mix, in my opinion, if you only do one subgenre over and over and over and over again, it's hard to progress. Even if you're only, like, I don't do hip hop, I mainly do rock and metal, but I still do, you know, a few different subgenres with under that umbrella. And that's how you kind of gain knowledge and experience and sharpen your tool set. So yeah, in the Crypt, we do a bunch of different things. A bunch of different styles of subgenres of metal. We're always doing different bands, all different multi-tracks, stuff I recorded 15 years ago, stuff I recorded this year. So as long as I get clearance from the bands, and yeah, that's what we do in the Mix Crypt. So if you have any other questions, you can go, there's a link in the video's description, and you can find out more about the Frightbox Mix Crypt, which is closing tomorrow night at midnight. And hopefully that helps. Okay. Sorry guys, I'm talking up a storm. It's like doing cardio. So Serge asks, Bobby, is your clear and heavy mix formula for guitars recorded via live amps or amp sims? Both. It doesn't matter. If you're working with an amp sim with a good impulse response, there should be no difference in mixing between a live amp and an amp sim. Because here's the thing, people have this thing in their heads that live amps magically sound better than amp sims. And the reality is, miking up a cab takes experience. And most of the time, the better amp tones I hear are from amp sims because it's easier for people to dial in. So for me, in my experience, I don't care if it's an amp sim or a live amp. A good amp sim tone and a good live amp sim tone should be the same. They're interchangeable. And I know when I work with bands, half the time they have no idea if I reamped it through a real amp, if I'm using an amp sim. I've gotten projects with really bad recorded guitar tones, like that somebody mic'd up, even in a pro studio, and I've used the TSC audio with my own impulse response, and they're loving it, and they have no idea. They have no idea it's an amp sim. And I only tell them if they ask. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so Antoine says, I found out that all of the distressor emulations are drastically different in character. My favorite ones are the Arouser and the IKM one. Yeah, man, that's going to be the truth, because even in the real world, I'm sure if you had two different distressors side by side, one that was from the mid-90s or late 90s and one that was built last year, they're going to have a different character. So it's funny when people are like, I don't know, the plugin sounds different than the hardware, but I've worked with two different hardware units of the same model that sound different. So how, there's scientifically, if you tested them with the scientific method, and it makes no sense to say plugins sound better or worse. And you're right, maybe one company emulated this particular piece of gear and the other company emulated another piece of gear. And that's why they're going to have a different character. So yeah, makes sense. So Paul asks, what is my strategy for automation? Dude, let's take a look at this mix here. Let's see if I have it pulled up. Okay, here are my guitars. I do a lot of automation on guitars as far as volume. Back in the day, I was lazy and I would try to EQ everything to fit. When in reality, when you watch guys like Andy Wallace or even Chris Lord-Alge, they do a lot of volume automation because that's the secret to a professional mix. You can't have everything being center focus all the time. So if I want to lead the pop through, I'm going to pull my rhythm guitars back. If I want to lead guitar to be more in the background, I might pan it off to the left side. And then when it's lead guitar solo time, I pan it to the center. So I do a lot of that. And honestly, there are no rules. Again, I share a lot of this in my master classes in the mix script where I dive deep and share every little nook and cranny of every piece of automation I do in a mix. Because it's specific to the song, and there's no one right or wrong. Excuse me. There's no one right or wrong way to do it. You can do it whatever your ear calls for. Like for example, in this song right here, let's take a listen to the intro. Oh, let me get out of these drums. Okay, so let me solo these guitars. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. I'm just going to make this a little bigger so you guys can see it. Can you see it? Yeah. All right. So we have an intro riff. And then when I do, there's this part that's like, on that I crank up the volume on the guitars because I want it to pop through. Take a listen. Actually, let me solo the guitars. I kill the verb on the. So right there on that riff, I boosted the volume for a second. A couple dB. 2 dB. Okay, these are the things that most people don't take the time to do, but I want to deliver the best possible product to the client, and these are the things that pro mixers actually do. They spend a lot of time, and again, I don't want you to get too caught up in it, like, oh, is this the right way? Is that the wrong way? There are no right or wrong ways. It's just the fact that I went in there, used my ear, and tried to pull out things that move me emotionally, right? And in my opinion, that part of the guitar riff was cool, so I wanted that to be boosted up. Plus, it's at the end of a vocal phrase. Take a listen. So he's screaming, and then there's a little break where the guitar happens, then he's screaming. Now, the guitar is happening the whole time, but I wanted to bring that part of the riff out in between the vocal phrases. So long and short of it, that's mainly what I'm doing with automation. Hopefully that answers your question. Thank you for your submission. Okay. Okay, so Okay, so Steven goes, Bobby, have you switched to using Easy Drummer 3? I have Easy Drummer 3. I haven't gotten used to, I've been messing with it. I've just been so busy with other projects. I haven't done any production with it yet. I do have it. Let me just make sure it's on this system. You know, I don't know. Let me see if I installed it on here. Let's see if I'm talking smack. TuneTrack, where are you? Yes, I have Easy Drummer 3. So I have Easy Drummer. It's weird because on this system, I have Easy Drummer 2 and 3, which is cool because you can actually have them side by side on the same system. I guess they completely redesigned Easy Drummer 3. Yes, long story short, I have Easy Drummer 3. I haven't had much time to mess with it, but I really liked the one feature that I have been messing with when I first bought it was how you can take your riff and then it'll analyze it and kind of come up with a beat automatically for your riff. So it's pretty cool. All right. So Steven asked what time I started the live. I started it at noon, so about a half an hour ago. Yeah, I didn't have a fancy intro. I'm going to work on that. Again, I do so many lives in the mixed crypt. I do 2 a month. So that's really where most of my lives are happening. I decided to do this here because I haven't had time to film a viewer questions answer video, a pre-shot video. And I decided, you know what? I've never done it in the history of this channel. Let me do a live and have some fun and get to meet with you guys and talk with you, you know, in real time. And it seems to be cool. So I'm glad you guys are digging it. A lot of good questions here. Okay, so Mr. Yager, YGGR. Yesterday I downloaded your free IR and holy smokes, it sounds so good. Glad to hear that. I have the Glenn Fricker IR pack and 4 Joey Sturgis IR packs. You really have to tweak them to make them sound good. Good job. Cool, man. I'm happy to hear that. I've never used their IRs, so I mean, it's all personal preference, but I'm happy to hear that you like mine. That's good stuff. So Richie's asks or says, playing metal with a clean tone, then adding an amp sim could throw off your timing and your feel. Well, yeah, you don't want to play with a clean tone. You want to play through the amp sim. That's what you want to do. So what I do, for example, I'm doing the new Tombs record in January. We usually reamp. Plus in my studio, I don't have a booth where I could put an amp. So I can only record DIs live. So what we'll do, we'll record the drums, bass will all be DI, guitars will all be DI, and then I take those DIs, we're monitoring through an amp sim, and then I reamp them through their Mesa Boogie and their 5150 at the end of the production when everything is done. But we're always monitoring through an amp sim. Hopefully that helps. So Filterscape. Hey mate, question about rendering. I rendered my rhythm guitar tracks and the volume seems lower and they sound different. Is that normal? You might want to make sure, now I don't know what DAW you're using, if you're rendering post fader and your fader is not at 0, maybe you're printing the fader level. That could be it. But if you, like for example, if I print my amp tones, I make sure that I print it from pre-fader. So I'm not printing any of the fader volume. That could be it. So give that a shot. Okay, so Steven. Cool, Bobby. Al Schmidt brightened up his guitars by making it louder. Seems, wait, hold on. Al Schmidt says he brightens up his guitars by making it louder. Seems to make no sense to me. Lazy way of doing automation. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Al Schmidt brightened up his guitars by making it louder. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, for me, when you make something louder, it just makes it sound louder. So obviously, the Fletcher-Munson curves, as you increase the volume of a sound, it's going to have a different frequency response. Your perception of it is going to be different. Maybe that's what he's talking about. Paul says, thanks, Bobby. You're really good at making things make sense. Dude, I'm so happy to hear that. It makes me happy. Dude, this is great. Baron says, hey, Bobby, I haven't watched it, so why you say Leroy? I'm surprised you know that, man. Yeah, okay, so in the studio, we're all Leroy in our studio. I call all my friends Leroy. It all comes back to, there's an amazing movie from the 80s called The Last Dragon. One of my favorite movies growing up as a kid. It used to be on HBO all the time. And the main character was Leroy. And there's a funny scene where the bad guy is like, who's the master, Leroy? Who's the master? It's like a kung fu movie from the 80s, tongue in cheek. And we all joked about that line in that movie. And then everybody became Leroy. And all the women that I know in my life are Carol, who was my grandmother, is my grandmother. So you have Carol and Leroy. Those are the two characters that everybody in my life I call. It's really weird. If you get to know me and hang out at the studio, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So we have Carol, and people call me Carol. Like my brother-in-law calls me Carol. So makes no sense, but it'll make sense if you go insane like me when you're spending all these hours in the studio. I'll tell you that much. Okay, yeah, and Brad says your timing through an amp sim will only be thrown off if you have too much latency. I've never had that issue. Yeah, you got to make sure you set your buffer nice and small, at least 128, 256, or lower if you can get away with it. Oh, okay, so Shay Media says really like the format. More of these, please. Happy to hear that. Yes. Oh, so Barron's, I'm gonna save the live. I don't know if I'm gonna keep the whole thing on the channel yet, but I'll definitely cut it up. Brad says, Bobby, have you ever used Perfect Drums? No, I have not. I'm not, you know what it is? Like, actually, a company just sent me one to check out. I can't remember what they're called right now. And they sound really cool. I might try. I'm really curious to checking out the Ergotone drums because they sound a little more raw. A lot of the MIDI drums, man, they're too polished sounding to me. I don't like that. Yes, I know there are ones that are supposed to be raw, but they still don't sound raw to me. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I do use MIDI drums, but I take all of the samples and I replace them with my own raw samples that I record, kind of like my IRs. Again, you don't have to do this. I just like the idea of using my own sounds personally. You don't need to do this. Again, same thing with drum samples. Like if I'm using drum samples on a record, I never use pre-made drum samples. I'll take samples of the kit in the session and I'll blend them in. And I have a whole vocabulary or a whole archive of my own drum samples that I've made throughout the years, but they're all raw, unprocessed. And it's funny, one of the members of the Crypt was just asking about that. And we're going to talk about that on Saturday with the last one. The song we did this month, I used my raw drum samples and, sorry, I'm looking, there's the camera. And he's like, oh, these don't sound, because when we download drum samples, we're used to them sounding EQ'd and compressed and smashed to death, you know? And my drum samples are raw. It's literally the source sound through an interface. So that's what I prefer. So when I do MIDI drums in a real production, I replace the sounds. Or if I'm using something like Easy Drummer, I just really, really don't process them. And I only do level stuff. And maybe I actually cut some top end to kind of tame them a little and sound a little more organic. So that's my approach on that. Okay, Bruce Leroy. Steven knows where it's at. Okay, Studio One. We see all kinds of stuff here. Okay, so Nika says, hey, Bobby, any workflow you can recommend to mix violins, brass, and choirs? All right, man. Well, my buddy Ben Karras is an amazing violinist, and he's done a bunch of orchestral stuff, real orchestral stuff that I've mixed. The approach is just make sure you roll off enough low end so it doesn't get in the way of your kick, bass, and guitars. And just a lot of automation. I do a ton of, if I don't, because here's the thing, if you squash your strings, they're going to start to sound weird. So I do a lot of automation to bring them up and down where I want them to cut through. And the thing that's kind of annoying with live strings anyway, is that certain resonances really poke through. So he'll be playing a part, or the orchestra or whatever will be playing a part, and then certain things really pop through. So you have to by hand go in there and make the parts sound the level you want them to sound. And the only way to do it is volume automation, to do it well, in my opinion. So that's my secret. I know it's not overly technical, it's not a quick fix, but that's the truth. Hello, Mr. Nutty Riffs. Glad to see you. Okay. Steven S says, hey, Bobby, what's your approach to adding ambiences like delay and reverbs? It's always too dry and too cloudy for me. Well, I'll show you in this mix, man. Now, this mix is very, very, this particular production's a little outside of my own personal comfort zone. A lot of my mixes are a little more polished. I wanted a more old school 90s mixed with Steve Albini production. Like, let's take a listen to the breakdown here, and I'll share my approach. So these drums were recorded in my project studio. I wanted it to sound like a metal album that was recorded by Steve Albini. Whether I succeeded or not is up to you to decide. But anyway, as far as ambiences, I keep it really simple. Now, there are a bunch of room mics on this particular track. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 room mics, which is way overkill. It's more of an experiment. I really only use 2. But as far as verbs, I have a simple approach. And I share it. There's a video I just uploaded on this particular mix. It's called My 3 Secrets to Mixing Pro Level Drums from Home Recorded Tracks or something like that. It's like last week I uploaded it. And I set up one simple reverb in my session. Sometimes it's a stock reverb. In this case, I'm using the Slate Verb Suite Classics. And I treat it how engineers treat reverb when mixing on a console, meaning I set up one verb and then I send little pieces of audio via sends to that verb. And that's it. And it's not, if you listen, I'm going to mute the verb. You're not going to hear much of a difference. It's very subtle. Take a listen. So I'm going to play it without with the verb, and then I'm going to intermittently bypass the verb. So it's adding a little bit of length. The trick is when you're new to verb, it's easy to overdo it. So you're gonna want to, start it with it like quieter than you would think. It adds a subtle ambience that you need, if that's the genre or the sound you're going for. Now, if you're going for like 80s stuff or 80s metal, then go crazy with the verb, use plates, use long decays and things like that. But there is no right or wrong way. So it depends on what your tastes are. Me personally, I've been in an experimental state recently. I've really been getting into 70s production and more like analog natural sounds. So I've been kind of cutting back on the verb. So hopefully that helps. Okay. Sorry, guys. I see some good stuff in here. I don't want to miss anything. Andrew says, I know you preach DAW quality, so just for kicks, what would it take for you to switch DAWs? It would take, well, all right. I'm going to be honest. I do love Pro Tools. I think in Pro Tools. Pro Tools is in my DNA at this point, for the most part. And the way my brain works, it just makes sense to me, right? I don't like that it's not stable. Like right now, this version of Pro Tools is glitchy with MIDI, which is really annoying. So that's kind of aggravating me. I just want it to work. And if they keep raising the price, I mean, it would have to get to be pretty expensive for me to switch because, again, like I said earlier during the live call, the amount of money and time I would lose by switching DAWs at this. But you gotta remember, I'm not just recording my own music. I'm recording other artists. I work with other engineers. I have templates. We record live productions, and we have headphone mixes pre-set up. And for me to do this in another DAW it would take at least 6 months to switch everything over and even begin to do that. So it's not just me involved. So they would have to start charging. Now, I own a perpetual license and I pay $200 a year, $300 a year, I think it's $300 a year, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe 200, I don't remember. It would have to be like $2,000 a year. Then I would have to switch. That's my opinion. That's what it would take me to switch from Pro Tools. And if I keep having these issues, these weird bugs, now I'm not on M1 Mac yet. I'm still on Intel. I want to wait until Pro Tools has native compatibility with M1 or M1, M2, whatever they are, the new ones. So I'm still on, actually at the studio, I'm still using my 2012 MacBook Pro that I use for tracking and even some mixing. That thing is a beast. Still going strong. In my home studio here, I'm using a Mac Mini 2018 model with the Intel processor, and I have it maxed out at 64 gigs of RAM. Even though you don't need a lot of RAM for a fast machine unless you're using a lot of samples and things like that. Excuse me. Okay, good. Thank you for your question. So Tommy Lee Music says, have you tried out STL Tone Hub? I think the tones sound pretty amazing. Yes, I think I have it. Dude, I have so many plugins, man, and I use like 3. It's ridiculous. Mainly for compatibility. If I'm mixing a session that was started somewhere else and they had that plugin, sometimes I would have to buy it or rent or like rent it so I could print the stuff. That's happened to me in the past. So do I have Tone Hub? I think I do. Addison, didn't we use Tone Hub when we were at my house? I feel like I have it. I don't know. I think I have Tone Hub. I just can't find it right now. Yeah, I have Tone Hub. I have the no, because I had the 5153. Yeah, Ignite. Right? Let's see. I should know these things, but again, I use 1 amp sim. Just gonna load. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I have Tone Hub. And the pack I have is I have the 5153 is the one that I have used. It's cool. I don't know. They all as long as you're using a good impulse response, that's all that matters. Thank you for your comment. Okay. Okay, so Drum Gizmo is totally unprocessed MIDI drums with separate mic channels. Check it out. I'll check it out, man. I haven't heard it, but I have heard ones that are supposed to be raw and they're not. So, but I'm curious to hear that one. All right, Adrian says, hi, Bobby. I'm very interested about making drum samples during the recording phase, but is there any phase issue when doing this? No. Well, think about it. When you're making your drum samples, I'm only using the spot mics. So if I have a snare top sample, you know, if I get 15 hits at like a hard velocity, 15 hits at a medium, 50 hits at a soft, that's just that one microphone, right? So no, I've never, honestly, maybe I'm weird. I've never in my life had issues with phase when recording drums. I hear people obsessed with it. Like I close mic my cymbals, kind of like Andy. I got it from Andy Sneap. And even when I interned at the House Aloud, there was an amazing producer and engineer named Dan Korneff, and he kind of mics his cymbals close-ish. I remember noticing that. I've never had issues with phase. So a lot of people are like, oh, don't you have phase issues with it? Never. I can count on one hand the amount of sessions after hundreds of drum sessions I've done where I've had, oh, wait, I can hear, I got to flip the phase on that. Now, let me just say this. When we're talking snare top, snare bottom, of course, you have the reverse polarity in your DAW, at least, right? Or if you're miking your toms, tom top, tom bottom, you're going to have to more than likely reverse your polarity. But as far as like, oh, those overheads add a fade, no, I've never, ever had that. So I don't know. Maybe I just don't notice it. I have no idea, but the band's never complained. So yeah, that's my opinion. I wouldn't worry about it. Okay, so a while back you recorded a song titled Jeff and Ramona. A while back you recorded a song titled Jeff and Ramona or something. Yes, Jeff and Ramona Ain't Gonna Make It by my band King Kelly. Lyrics and melodies by my buddy Steve Biasucci, who in my opinion is one of the greatest lyricists ever. Do you upload it to Spotify? No, man, we're bums. We got to upload it. Honestly, I didn't think anybody was really gonna like it. I didn't have any commercial, like I did it just to show you guys how to record in a budget studio. I didn't even think anybody was gonna like the song or anything. So yeah, well, eventually we're gonna release it. I'm not really a band guy anymore. I would love to get back into playing again and doing more of that, but eventually we're going to put it out and make a video. And well, there's kind of a video playthrough, but I'm so dude, that means the world to me that you like it. It motivates me to play guitar more. So yeah, we'll release it eventually. We'll record more stuff. There's some older King Kelly stuff you could check out on YouTube. I think we have an old YouTube channel from when we were like a full band. Just go on YouTube and type in King Kelly Band, and you'll find some other tunes too that you might like. The last EP we did back in 2012 is probably my favorite. Next, I really like Jeff and Ramona, but that one has the catchiest songs on it, in my opinion. So thanks, dude. Stay tuned. Glad you like the song. All right. Let's see. Stevens asks, what do you do to get great cymbals and overhead sounds? Any EQ trick? Okay, well, let's talk about that. Again, I mic my cymbals close and I do not care. I roll off everything. Like in this case, I'm rolling off everything around 1K, 2K, because I get a lot of my meat from the close mics and I use room mics to glue the sound of the kit together. Now, when I was in audio school, we were taught to, mic drums traditionally, space pair of overheads. You make sure that they're spaced and you're gonna get this magical blend of the kit. If I'm recording jazz, definitely. If I'm recording country, definitely. Metal, hard rock, I close mic my cymbals and I filter the living heck out of them, right? Because I only want the sizzle. Like if you listen to my cymbals, they're very thin. Even in this production, that's a little more like natural sounding. But cymbals are thin, but the rooms fatten up the drums. So here are my cymbals. But if you hear them raw, if you hear the overheads and the cymbals all raw, it's really beefy, right? So I'm filtering out all that low-end stuff that I don't need because at the same time, with my cymbals in the mix, I also have all of these room mics. So the way I think of it is kind of like a layered cake, right? I have my toms and my kick taking care of the low end, all of the beefy mid-range and all of the, that kind of stuff's with the close mics. My cymbals are at the top, and then the rooms fill out the rest. They fill out the rest of the mid-range in a more distant, diffused kind of way. That's how I like to think of it, and that's my approach. Good question. Okay, so Steven asks, guys, I hope I'm not missing super chats. I apologize. If there are super chats I've missed, I will go back and answer them. I'm new to this, and I tried to run a test on an unlisted video last night, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. And there's no clear information on YouTube. They may have been like older videos. Okay, so Paul asks, let me go back. I'm sorry. Steven asks, thanks, Bobby. Does the vocals or leads or solo guitar also go into the same reverb, just in different in volume sense? Yes, actually, a lot of the times in my mixes, I'll use one reverb for everything. A little bit on, same one on the drums, vocals, leads. Depends on how simple I want to keep it. Other times I might have a separate verb for the vocals. Sometimes I'll have a separate verb for the leads. It really depends on the mix. It depends also on if I want a different character for the leads. You know, I don't really. Most of the time, I don't use reverb on leads at all. I don't even use reverb on vocals that much. I usually use a slap delay. Like in this mix here, these vocals. Now this is a very, whoa. Okay. In this mix, it's a very kind of old school. Ooh, I'm sorry. Okay. If we listen to the vocal sound, it's more carcassy, at the gatesy, old school melodic death metal kind of stuff. And I wanted it to sound kind of retro and dirty. So let's take a listen.
Forever is vain! Fear of the living!
So that's my vocal verb here.
That's what I was made!
It's not even reverb. It's just a stock delay plugin in my DAW set to 220 on the left, 420 on the right to create this cool retro, old school slap Elvis kind of thing. And that's my reverb for these vocals. Now, if I'm recording a deathcore band, I'm not going to do this, obviously. The vocals are going to be way more dry and way more in your face. If I'm recording like a really, really, really good female vocalist or something, I'll go with more of like the slate reverb, where it's like a longer tail. It all depends on what you're going for, but that's my approach. Or if I want to keep it really simple, a lot of times when I mix live recordings, which I do a lot now, we're doing a lot of live production out of my studio with live video, I'll use one reverb for everybody to keep it all self-contained and very in the same universe, in the same room, right? So the same virtual room, so to speak. Thank you for your question. Okay, so Metal Insights asks, how do you pan the guitars in a band that has 3 guitarists? Oh, that sounds like a nightmare. No, I'm kidding. I haven't, dude. I've done maybe 2 bands in my whole life with 3 guitar players. And honestly, and this is just my opinion, I would highly recommend researching producers that are doing bands like Periphery or whatever bands have 3 guitar players. What I did, I took the 2 tight guitar players in the band, and I had one guy do one left, one guy do one right, and then I had one guy that would do like sprinkles, like overdubs here and there. I never had all 3 playing at the same time. Never. That's just me. If I were to do that, I guess, I don't like the sound of one rhythm guitar up the middle. It just doesn't jive with me when I mix. Maybe there are people out there that do it successfully. I just don't like that sound. So I would never have one guy left, one guy right, one up the middle, because the vocals are in the middle, the snare drum's in the middle, and the bass is in the middle. So in that case, I would probably do something like one left, one right, and then I'll split the one mono guitar player and pan them out. Or I would maybe pan them slightly to the right or to the left. That's what I would do. But 3 guitars are too much for me. That's just my own personal little. It's kind of like I don't like a lot of toms on drums. I cannot stand, dude. It's gotten to the point where a drummer has a lot of toms, I won't record them. I'm serious. Like go drive somebody else nuts. That's just my own opinion. But yeah, that's what I would do if I were recording a band live with 3 guitar players. Oh, perfect example. I have done live production with like a rhythm guitar on the left, rhythm guitar on the right, and acoustic in the middle. And what I do in that situation is left, right guitars, and then I split the mono acoustic off to the sides with a delay by 25 milliseconds. So I still create that nice hole in the middle for the vocals, the bass, the snares, and the kick. And it works well. But remember, that's different because acoustic guitar is a different timbre, a different instrument, really, than having 3 metal guitars happening at once. So that's my approach. Hopefully that helps you. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. Bag of Schmidt says, what's your opinion on active dynamic plugins like Soothe and Golfos? No idea, man. I have never used them, although I do like and I don't know if this counts as the same category. There's a plugin by, can't think of what they're called right now. Black Salt Audio. They have a plugin that I've been using. I can't remember what it's called. Let's see, BS Audio, not Clipper. I love, dude, their Clipper plugin I love, by the way. I can't remember what it's called, but it does something, it adds harmonics to the top end in a way that's not like boosting high frequencies. That's really nice. And you can also fatten up the mids, I believe. I mainly use it for high end, so I use that, but I don't use Soothe. I'm very basic, man. The way I see it is there have been amazing productions done since the dawn of time with basic tools. I am not a fan. Like everyone's like, oh, why don't you use linear phase EQs? Dude, I have never in my life worried about phase with EQs ever. Like people are like, oh, your slopes look really steep. You should use a linear phase EQ. I don't know. I mean, it sounds cool to me and nobody's ever complained. So, and again, there were amazing sounding records done on analog consoles where nobody was even thinking about that. So why would I worry about that now? It doesn't really make sense for me personally. So thank you for your submission, but no, I have no experience using those. Okay, so Sergio wants to hear the drums once more. I'll play them just one more time and I'll get to the other questions just to hear the reverb. There's not a lot of reverb in this mix. Again, most of it is the ambience from the rooms. Check it out. One trick I am using though is I'm taking the mono room that's behind my shelf and I'm sending that 100% wet to the slate verb to make it sound even bigger. So there's verb in there, but it's not crazy. And it's just adding a little bit of kind of power to the overall kit. So hopefully that helps. And guys, for anyone who's watching, I just want to let you know if you're digging this call and you would like to have more access and direct access with me and other members or other people that are really into audio production that are going to listen to your mixes, the Frightbox Mix Crypt is open until tomorrow night at midnight. Then I'm closing it and I'm not taking any more students after that. We do a live call every single month at the end of the month, just like this, except it's way more intimate so I can get to everyone's questions. We also critique each other's mixes. There's another live call in the middle of the month where I listen to your mix and I give you feedback directly. And you mix a brand new song every month with multi-tracks. And on top of everything else, you have access to our entire back catalog, which right now I think is up to 14 songs. And it's just growing and growing and growing, and you have access to all of it. So if you're interested, there's a link below in this video's description. Check it out. The Frightbox Mix Script closes tomorrow night at midnight. Just want to let you know, because people ask me about it all the time. And the reason why I don't keep it open all year long is that it gets too crazy. Like, I want to make sure that everyone gets the attention that they deserve when they join the crypt. And if there are too many people joining at once, it just, or too often, it's hard to manage everyone's comments and questions. So I want to make sure it's just, you know, a select group of people that are serious and really want to take their mixes to the next level and want to hang out with me and talk mixing and help each other out with other productions, or help other people out with their productions while other people help out with your productions. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, there's a link below in this video's description to the Frightbox Mix Crypt. Okay, we're getting there. So Andrew says, how has the studio name Frightbox Recording aged in your opinion? Picking a studio artist name is incredibly stressful for me. Thanks again. Dude, that's a great question, man. I remember well, let me just say this. I had no intention of doing this for a living. When I was a kid, all I cared about was playing in a band. I had no interest in audio production. And it's one of those weird things that it kind of like one interest stacked on top of the other for me. So by the time I started recording my own music, people heard my stuff on MySpace and started asking me to record them. And I'm like, man, I better come up with a studio name. The first studio name, it was called Magic Potion Studios. Why I called it that, I have no idea. Then it became something else really dumb. And then, I don't know how I thought of Frightbox. I think I was working with a band called Abassinate, who are good buddies of mine. Actually, two of the guys from Abassinate are in Tombs, and I'll be working with them in January. We're doing a record, but it's cool to see those guys progress in their careers as well. So we've been working together on and off for, oh my God, how many years now? 15 years. That's mind-blowing. But anyway, when I was working on their album in 2007, somehow I came up with it. I don't know why. Oh, because I used to play horror movies. I still do in the studio. And somehow somebody said something about a TV looking like a box, and I'm like a scary box. And then I'm like, Frightbox. It just stuck. I don't know. It just has a cool ring to it. I'm a horror junkie maniac. And it just, I don't know. It was my studio name back then, and it's what I still use to this very day, and I'll probably use it for the rest of my life. So hopefully you like it. It's been the name. I like it, so I stick with it. Good question. Okay. Okay, so Curtis says, do you have a favorite mic position? Depends on what instrument. If you're talking about guitars, I like it on axis, directly at the cone, slightly to the left or right, just to darken up the tone a little. That's what I do for guitars. Drums, we're talking, you know, it's limitless. And also it's just what the instrument calls for and what mic I'm using and all that kind of stuff. Paul says, 54 people and only 11 likes. Come on, Bobby deserves more. Dude, I'm just happy anybody's here at all. Again, I didn't know what to expect. I've never done a live on YouTube, so I've watched tons of lives on YouTube. What's funny with me is I don't watch audio people on YouTube. I'm not really an audio nerd. I watch a lot of horror channels. Like, I'm obsessed with this guy, Dave McRae. Dave, if you're watching, hello, I highly doubt it, but I watch Dave McRae. Another dude, we watched a movie. Those two guys are great. Yeah, I watch a lot of horror content, to be honest with you. I don't even watch a lot of YouTube content. So I didn't know what to expect. So when I watch their lives, they're berserk, you know, but I mean, they have big channels. But I'm happy with this. I'm so happy you guys are here. I'm grateful. You don't even have to like the video. It doesn't matter to me. Just hanging out with me and asking questions, that's all that matters to me. And watching my videos. And I just want to know that I'm helping people. That's all that matters. So thank you so much for the nice comment. So Jimmy Whip 3D says, Jeff and Ramona Ain't Gonna Make It is a banger. Dude, thank you so much. And Wrist Cutter Sandwich, one of my favorite songs, man. Thank you so much. He's naming off old King Kelly songs. Yeah, again, I'm meeting with the guys for the first time in 7 years. We're getting together and playing on the 24th. I'm really excited. I haven't jammed or played with musicians in a room in so long, and I cannot wait. It's a part of me that I would love to have back in my life, if that makes sense. Because all I do, I mean, since, you know, right now I've just bought this house, so we're renovating. That's my entire existence is based around that. So I want to get back to playing. I miss it. Okay. Ooh, I can't pronounce your last name. Good question though. Hey Bobby, are you a fan of using stereo width in your master bus? Absolutely not. When I was younger, I used to mess around with it. I've learned proper panning, proper mixing. I avoid stereo width plugins at all costs. Not to say that they're not good. Maybe there are people out there that use them with great results. I don't use them at all. So good question. And I think my good friend Jordan Valerian, we've had conversations, or I've heard him say. I don't remember if we talked about it on our live. We did a live stream together, or we did a interview almost a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, something like that. And I don't remember if he mentioned it there, but he's not a fan as well. And I've learned that a lot of the pro mixers, they don't really use them for the most part. Again, I can't generalize. Who knows? Oh, there is one exception. I can tell you one that I know for a fact. Randy Stab, who mixed the Black Album, one of the best mixers of all time. He has this crazy widener that's from like, forgive me if I'm wrong about this, but it's like some piece of like consumer stereo equipment thing that he uses for his guitars, I think. And it's like a stereo widener. So there are no rules. That's what he uses, and that's like one of his secrets to his guitar tone. So it works for him. You know, I'm not gonna, you know, some of his productions are some of the best rock and metal productions of all time, and that works for him. But for me, I've never really liked here's what they are. Like, I do them like, oh, that sounds awesome. And then I listen back the next day, I'm like, yeah, I don't like it. I just get rid of it. So I just prefer to keep simple panning and just getting it right at the source. Okay. Okay, well, Curtis, I answered you about your mic position. Good stuff. Ooh, so Leo asks a good question. How do you get the snare to cut through on a very busy song? If it's live drums, and you're talking now, dude, this all comes down to the genre of music. This comes down to what you want to hear, the drummer. I'm going to give you an example. This production, the drummer is my good friend, Justin. Wow, I'm missing the chat. Is my Justin Spaeth, who's also in Tombs, and he is sick. So he's really, really good at blasting, all this crazy stuff. And even someone that's a talented drummer like him, you still need something if you want, you need to reinforce the snare with samples if it's crazy blasting most of the time. Doesn't have to be loud, it can be very low. And what I get are a lot of guys that are like, oh, I can't hear my drums, and then they want their productions to sound like Periphery. Or like I should say, like, I don't know, some polished production. And you sometimes often need to blend in a sample to make things cut through. That's just the truth. I know online, here's the thing, a lot of people talk smack about samples, but they've been using them on records since like the 1980s, all right? Samples are not new. Metallica records have samples all over them. old death metal records have samples, definitely the kick sampled. So a lot of times you just have to blend in a sample if it's a live drums to get it to cut through, right? So that's the situation I see the most often when people send me their mixes and ask me that. That's why I'm attacking that end of it, and hopefully that helps. Okay. Oh my God, so many. Yes, Black Salt Audio is Jordan's company, and it's phenomenal. I got to try some of the plugins, I think, before they were even released, and I was blown away. Again, the thing about Jordan that I really like is he's all about simplicity and like not a fan of gimmicks. I'm the same way. So just give me something that works, and I want to move on with my life. I don't want to be messing around with. I don't like when plugins have a million features that are like useless. So his plugins are so functional and so quick. Love it, love it, love it, love it. That's why I like a lot of the old Waves plugins as well. So DFNY Music. Hello, DFNY Music. I know you've been a fan of the channel for a long time. Thank you so much. He says, you can make over 100 short videos from cutting this live video up. So many gems here. Dude, I'm happy to hear that. Maybe I'll do that. Good stuff. Okay, so the Justin side says, what are your thoughts on parallel compression on program drums and parallel saturation on electric guitar or parallel compression on the master bus? Me personally, I don't use parallel compression on the master bus. I just use regular compression very lightly. That's just me. That's what sounds best for me. Parallel saturation on electric guitars, I don't really use that too much. I do sometimes add a little bit of dirt on the guitars if I want it to sound really analog and really retro, or if I want to like kind of like make the mix sound a little more old school. I'll use a little bit of saturation on my guitars, but I will run it in parallel actually. Yeah. So sometimes if the saturation if it's too obvious an effect, I'll bring down the mix on the saturation on my guitars to make it a little more subtle. And as far as thoughts on parallel compression on the program drums, here's my situation here. For live drums and program drums, I have 3 approaches. No compression at all on my drum bus if I want the drums to sound open. I do this a lot with live recordings. Obviously live recordings are real drums, but it still would be the same thing if I want that sound for program drums. I'll do regular compression in a very subtle way, like 2 or 3 dB, just to kind of like tame the peaks on a mix that I want a little bit of glue, but I don't want them to sound overly bombastic. And then if I want the drums to sound really, really hard hitting and really, really exciting, I'll use parallel compression. So those are my 3 categories in my mind I choose from. I've found, and I know you're asking about program drums, but I just want to say this. The less tight a band is, or even if it's like a live recording where not everything is locked in, when you slam your drum bus too much and the timing isn't right, it makes the mix sound sloppy, I found. So put it simply, for more organic, natural things where things aren't perfect, I use less compression on my drum bus. And I do either no compression or just subtle compression. And if I have something really produced, really locked in, I'll use some parallel compression to really make the drums cut through because everything is so in sync that it just feels right. So hopefully that makes sense. Go take a sip of water. Okay. Oxygen. That's what it was called. I couldn't think of it before. And dude, I don't know if like I updated Pro Tools because I wanted to fix an issue that I was having. And like, I don't know if my plugins list is different, but I've been having trouble finding stuff. So either that or I'm getting old and I don't remember where stuff is. Okay. All right, Mr. Manuel says, hey, Bob, have you ever tried a THU guitar plugin? Incredible VST with endless options to build a great guitar tone. I've heard great things, man. I haven't tried it, though, yet. Okay, so Steven asks, is the Mixcrypt separate from the Academy? Okay, well, the Academy is just my school overall. So I have multiple courses. And the difference between a course, I get this question a lot, actually. The difference between a course and the Mixcrypt, a course is a one-time purchase that you have access to for life. So, for example, I have a mixing course that's really in-depth called Heavy Mixing Unlocked. Comes with multi-tracks. It's over 6.5 hours long. Covers everything as far as mixing, my main approach to mixing. But you own that. That's yours. So you buy it once, you have it forever, right? The Mixcrypt is a subscription, kind of like Netflix, where every month you get new content, but it's on a subscription basis. And there's so much content in there. If you would like to go back and check it out. So for example, let's say you join now, you might go back and say, I don't like this song. I'm not going to mess with that one. Oh, I really like this song. Maybe you like the song we did back in like February of this year, right? Plus you have access to the community. There's a community where everybody hangs out and talks, shares each other's mixes. So it's completely different, right? But my Academy is all of my products, which are all my courses and the Frightbox Mixcrypt. So hopefully that makes sense. If you have any other questions, drop it in the chat here and I'll be happy to answer. Okay, so Steven says, thanks, Bobby, for the insight. I guess I'm going to go to sleep too sleepy for tonight. Usually I go to sleep at 7 a.m., but today 1 a.m. seems too late for me. Dude, you know what's funny? I used to stay up all night and sleep in late, and I cannot sleep in anymore. Like, I literally have to wake up at 8 or 9. Recently, because I'm so tired from like spackling and putting up sheetrock and stuff, that I have been sleeping in a little. But yeah, I cannot sleep in, and even then I can't stay up as late as I used to. Like, I'm out by like 1, 2. I'm out at the latest, right? Lately, I've been slipping back into my younger ways again, just because things have been so crazy around here. But I feel you, man. So no problem. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. Oh, good question, man. Yeah, the dust cap. So Metal Insights asks, what do you refer to as the cone? I should have specified the center of the speaker, that round thing. I guess it's the dust cap. I think it's the dust cap. Yeah. So the round thing in the middle. I don't ever go straight on. I start straight on and I move it over an inch. Here's the thing: if you're miking guitars, people don't realize this. You move that thing. I'm not even joking. I have a 57. Give me 1 second. All right. I know. Can you guys still see me? Okay, good. I'm just making sure I'm coming through you can still see me. Here's my 57, right? I'm not even joking. Let's say you move it. Ready? Here. It's a little too bright. Oh, it's a little too dark. Just right. And then the closer you are, the more proximity effect comes into play, and the more low-endy and boxy your tone will be. The further back you pull it, the more airy your low end is going to be, and the more open your tone is going to be. So it's that balancing act between, center, left, or if you want to go right. I mean, it really doesn't matter depending. I mean, if you really want to get technical, it depends on what speaker you're using, and if you're close to the edge of the cab. That's how I approach it. And I really enjoy the process. Dude, I'm going to be honest. You could use amp sims and no one's going to know in a million years. We're past that. Everybody knows that. Anyone who refutes that has no real world experience. That's my opinion. But with that being said, I still, from time to time, like to use real amps because I just like it. I'm a guitar player. I like messing with tones. It's just fun. But 50% of my productions are amp sims just because they sound good, if you have a proper impulse response. But that's my approach with miking cabs. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, hello, Mr. Torin Garlic. Torarin. Guys, if I'm butchering your names, I'm really sorry. But Torarin Garlic. Garlic. Yeah. Sup, dude, saying hi from Norway. Dude, thank you so much for coming. You should check out Brandon Tenhold's cult movie reviews. Dude, I gotta check it out. Maybe that sounds familiar. I probably might even watch him. I watch so many different horror YouTube channels. Dave McCrae's my go-to. I love Dumb Drums. That's one of my favorites. Cody Leach is one of my favorites as well. The Thing with Two Heads podcast. Sean Clark. I've been a fan of Sean Clark since I started seeing him show up on my Halloween DVDs back in like 2005 or something. Sean Clark's the man. If anybody here's a horror fan, check out the Thing with Two Heads podcast. Phenomenal. Also, Sean Clark has his own content called Horrors Hallowed Grounds, where he goes back to original locations and talks about the history of that particular movie, the location. It's so good. And most of it's on YouTube now, but I have a lot of it. I'm old school, so I have a lot of it on DVD still on the Shout Factory releases. And even, I think there's one even on the Halloween 25th anniversary DVD as well. So yeah, that's what I watch on YouTube. That, and now I'm learning a lot about video production because that's something that I've really been interested in my whole life, but I just haven't gotten into. So it's really video production and horror stuff. I rarely watch audio related things. Unless it's Rick Beato. I love watching Rick Beato, and I love watching like the interviews with producers, old school producers from like when I was a kid, like, guys that produce like Pantera records and like Metallica records. That stuff interests me as well. So Steve Albini, I can listen to that guy talk forever. So yeah, man, thank you for this. Thank you for the suggestion. Okay, well, Bag of Schmidt says, just want to let you know that your videos have made my mixes go from F grade to solid B over the past 2 years. Dude, I'm so happy to hear that, man. That fires me up and keeps me going. That makes everything worth it for me. So happy to hear that. Okay, so Torinin Garlic says, do you have a solution for crappy sounding guitars which sound bad through almost all sims? Are you sure it's the guitar? It could be something else. It could be that your guitar's not intonated. It could be that you're not using fresh strings. I see that a lot where people will think it's one particular piece of gear and it's actually something else. Unless your guitar, I don't know. I've hardly in my life. It's rarely the guitar. So give that a shot. Make sure your guitar is well intonated with fresh strings. Give that a shot first. So Jared says, "Hi Bobby, I'm looking for multi-tracks for practicing editing. Do you know of any place where I could download, purchase them?" I am not sure. I can say this though, in the Mixscript, that's something that we are going to be doing more of. I do bonus lessons as well, where like I'll show my approach to tuning vocals, editing drums, things like that. And from time to time, I will share unedited tracks for us members to work on together. That's an option. I don't know. I'm sure it's out there. Don't get me wrong. I don't know of any offhand, though, to be honest with you. It's not even something that I have done yet, but it's something that I've had members talk about and suggest, and that's something we're going to work on. Because the truth is, in audio production, you have to be a good editor, okay? You have to be a good editor. I know that's not popular to say. No one wants to hear that. Real producers in the real world can edit, are amazing editors, because you have to fix stuff, okay? Unless you want it to not sound right. Yes, old school records have less editing, but there's still more editing than you would think. I'm pretty sure this is true. Enter Sandman is something like 50 drum takes spliced together, okay? And Enter Sandman ain't a technical song, right? That's because Bob Rock had a vision and he wanted that perfect groove from Lars, and he did what it took to get it to sound like that. And that's the approach that I take in the studio as well. So yes. Sorry, I'm not much help with that, but I don't know of any offhand. But I'm sure if you join like a Facebook group where other producers are talking, ask for unedited tracks. I'm sure a lot of guys will be happy to share them with you. So hopefully that helps. Okay. Okay, so Matthew says, "Hey Bobby, recent subscriber here, loving tutorials and guides. Thanks a lot." Dude, I'm so happy to hear that, man. Welcome to the Frightbox YouTube channel, and a lot of cool stuff in the pipeline. I just want to say that. So thank you for coming, and thank you for watching the videos. Okay, so Maddie says, "Hello there. Just came across your videos and they've been awesome. Just wondering, when you start a new session, do you lay down a drum track first? And lastly, do you ever quantize Easy Drummer?" Well, if I'm writing with the band or if I'm writing on my own, I start with a template, and I usually start with a riff, and then we build the drums with Easy Drummer. A lot of times we'll pull in presets from Easy Drummer, and I'll quantize it if it needs it. It depends on what the production want. You know, if the production is more of like a gent perfect thing, yeah, it's quantized. If I want a little more swing in there, a little more feel, and make it sound a little more old school, then no, I won't quantize it. But it's still got to be tight. So hopefully that helps. Where says, "What would you say is the key to having your toms sound huge in the mix?" Make sure they're tuned right when you record them. That makes a huge difference. Make sure you're playing with a drummer or recording a drummer that actually hits them hard enough and doesn't just play them too quickly. There's no secret, man. There really is no secret. It depends on the source sound. Some toms are really cardboard boxy sounding. Some are really plasticky and harsh. Some sound perfect as they are. I will say this, you're gonna wanna roll off low end you don't need. So most toms, you can roll off everything below at least 50 hertz. And as the tom gets smaller, let's say you're working on a massive kit and you have fat 18-inch floor toms, 16-inch floor toms, and then it goes all the way down to like a 10-inch tom or an 8-inch tom. Those smaller toms don't need a lot of low end or as much low end as your fat toms, big toms. So you could work your high pass filters slowly up to help clean up the sound of the toms so you can get them louder in the mix, right? If you don't filter out the low end on your toms and you crank them in your mix, they're going to be messing with the low end. So that's at least one component. I'm also a fan of using transient shapers on toms to make them pop through a little more if the drummer isn't hitting hard enough, but that's pretty much it. So hopefully that helps. Okay. Aaron Bands Music asks or says, "How would you mix a snare recording where raising the top end just makes it sound clicky?" Well, what are you trying to do with it? Are you, is raising the top end the answer? Maybe it's not the answer, right? Is it a live snare? It all depends on the snare itself. Something that I do a lot, actually in this mix itself, let's see here. This mix is mainly natural drums. And what I did on the samples, now there are samples, but they're from the same drummer's drum set. These are not pre-made samples. I'm actually using a transient shaper because I didn't want this drums to be plasticky, harsh, modern, bright sounding. I wanted them to sound like Steve Albini kind of recorded them, right? That was in my mind what I wanted. And I wanted more attack out of the snare. So what I did is I used a transient shaper just to increase the attack, but not the high frequencies. And I'm doing that on the live snare, and I'm doing it on 2 of the samples. So I'm doing that. That was my way of making the snare pop without it being too bright. So you might want to mess with a transient shaper. That helps a lot. Okay, hopefully that helps. Okay, so Darren asks, what's your approach to making mixes translate? Dude, it's listening on multiple sources. Now I'm using okay, let me answer this. This was a pre-submitted question. I didn't even get to the pre-submitted questions because you guys are asking so many good ones in the chat, but when I mix, you're gonna laugh at me. Go back and look at my posts on YouTube, my actual community posts. That's what I mix on. IK Multimedia, iLoud monitors. Dude, let me just backtrack. I used to mix at the studio. When I moved into this house, when we were living on the second floor, when we were renting before we bought the house, I set up a little mix room there, and I wanted to buy monitors just for editing because I didn't plan on mixing at my house. I bought these IK Multimedia monitors, and all of a sudden, after like a few months, I was liking my mixes more from those than the monitors I had at the studio with the sub. I just got used to mixing on these. So those are the monitors that I use. And the secret is to listen on a few different references that you know well, right? Most people, it's the car that they know well. It's funny, I drove around this old beat up Hyundai, 2005 Hyundai Elantra. I love that car. I had a lot of space, but it was in bad shape at the end. I drove that thing from 2005 to this year. And I knew the stereo by the back of my hand. I listened to everything on it. And I finally I was so sad. I had to get rid of the car and buy a new one. And now I'm learning my new stereo, which I'm not a fan of the fact that you can't plug things into a car directly anymore. Everything's Bluetooth, which I'm not too crazy about. But anyway, that was my reference, was my old car. I have a stereo that I've had since I was a kid, literally since I was 10 years old. My old family stereo, I have that upstairs. I listen to music on that. So I have a few references that I know by the back of my hand, and I know what music should sound like on them. So when I'm mixing, I test my mix on multiple playback systems. And the more you do that, the more you know, okay, like for example, when I'm mixing in this room, this is a new room I'm mixing in. I know it pretty well now. It's been a few months, and there's no treatment in here either. I haven't gotten around to it. Maybe I will never treat it. I don't know. I've never really messed with that too much. But I know now in this room, I don't hear low end as much as I did upstairs. But I'm slowly training my ear to know where it's sitting right on these monitors. It just takes time and listening on multiple references that you know well. That's the secret. And also, I like listening on closed back headphones to check low end. I do that a lot as well. So, and I need a haircut. So yeah, there's that. So dude, thank you for your question. Hopefully that helps. Okay, so Michael asks or says, hey, Bobby, do you use outboard gear? Nope, zero outboard gear. If I'm at a bigger studio, like I'm buddies with a studio called North End Recording, really, really cool studio in my building. And Ed and JP own a lot of amazing gear. And if I'm there, I'll patch something in on the way in. They have really cool preamps, a lot of cool vibed out stuff. I love it. I'll use it, but you don't need that stuff. Like in my studio is the same rig that like a 15-year-old kid could have in his basement at my studio, which is a rehearsal space. I use a Motu 8-channel, 2 Motu 8 pre's via light pipe, and then I have an Arturia 8 pre, which is also called 8 pre, through light pipe. And so I have 24 inputs, but it's just a USB interface. That's all I use. I don't use any outboard gear. Good question. Thank you. Leo asks, are you still doing mix reviews? Would love to have your feedback. Dude, I'm still doing mix reviews, but honestly, it's hard to get to everyone. I get dozens upon dozens every week, and it's really, really, I feel bad. I wish I could do every single person. That's why I started doing it in the Mixcrypt, and that's my main focus, just because those, like, we're a close-knit community, and I can have more access directly with people, and I feel like I'm more helpful that way. I'm still going to do them on YouTube. I'm never going to stop doing them. There's just so many pieces of content that I want to get to that I just humanly cannot get to everybody's mix reviews. So yes, I'm going to still do them on YouTube. I'm just dialing it back a little because there are other things I want to do. And plus now I'm really focusing in that in the community in the Mixcrypt. So hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, if you send me a mix, hopefully I'll get to it. I try to get to every single one, but I mean, if I were to be honest with you, I have hundreds I haven't gotten to yet. So that's my answer. Hopefully that helps. Maybe I'll do it live. Okay, so Vincent, thank you for coming. I know you've been a fan of the channel for a long time as well. Okay, I'm getting there. He says, live mix reviews would be awesome, Bobby. I've submitted a few that you reviewed. Your comments really helped. Good, man. Well, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that from time to time. I'll see how this live seems to be going really well. So maybe I'll do more of these. Thank you, man. What's it say? Probably to performance too. Performance is huge when making sure tone is good too. Dude, that's one of the secrets. Performance is a must. You know what's funny? When I did live sound, before the world changed and I stopped doing live sound, but when I was doing it, I'm new to live sound. I only started doing live sound around 5 years ago. I've always been a studio guy. At the club, we had the same backline or the same house, same house drum set, same cabs. I was blown away how the same, I've had it where like the bands use the same heads, same drum set. 3 different bands sound completely different from one another just by the way they play. And I would have to mix completely differently on the console just based off of those players. So performance is way more than most people think. People think the secret is mixing. Mixing is part of it, don't get me wrong, it's part of it. But performance and then in production, editing, it's the whole picture that's important, right? So yeah, performance is a huge part of tones. People think everything's guitar tone, and half your guitar tone is the way you play. It's the tightness. It's the way you attack a string. That's why James Hetfield can plug into a little Line 6 Spider and he'll sound like James Hetfield because he's sick. He's one of the best rhythm guitar players of all time. And then vice versa, you could have someone that's inexperienced plugged into Dimebag Darrell's guitar rig and it's not going to sound like him because he's not Dimebag Darrell, So yeah, really, the source really matters, especially when it comes to performance. So Bag of Schmidt asks, do you have a favorite metal subgenre? Dude, you know what's funny, man? I don't really listen to metal. I grew up listening to like Pantera, Metallica, of course, Megadeth, At the Gates. I'm a huge Van Halen fan growing up. What I mainly listen to now, man, is like I listen to Sirius Radio and I listen to like the 80s station, 80s pop stuff. And sometimes I'll listen to, I'm weird. Like I'll go through phases where I listen to a lot of new death metal, like the new Cannibal Corpse record I really liked. I like the new At the Gates stuff. So I listen to metal, don't get me wrong, but I'm not like a crazy metalhead. Plus I produce metal, so I'm metaled out. I'm metaled out, man. Metaled out, but I love it. I love Jens Bogren's work. There are also producers that I like so much that I'll listen to their records even if I don't really care about the band that they produce. So I listen to a lot of Jens Bogren's records, Andy Sneap. Huge fan of his records as well. Yeah, so there's my answer. But as far as favorite metal subgenre, it's hard to say, man. I like so many different styles of music, so many different styles of metal. I grew up listening to, like I said, I can't even then I can't specify because I love old 80s thrash as well. So I'm not a big fan. I know I get a lot of questions. People will be like, oh, do more black metal stuff. Do more grindcore stuff. I like certain black metal bands and I like certain grindcore bands, but I don't like the genres as a whole. I don't get it. Like I don't get things sounding bad on purpose. I personally do not understand that. I like good songwriting. Let me just put it that way. There are bands like my friend Addison, who may or may not be in the chat. He's always showing me these sick bands that like I wouldn't think I would like, but because the songs are good, I like the band. So I'm more of a song guy. I don't care if it's brutal, guttural death metal or pop music that like 15-year-olds are listening to. To me, a good song is a good song, but metal's in my blood. I've been listening to metal since I was a little kid, but I don't have a favorite subgenre. Long-winded answer, but that's my answer. Good question. So Steven says, Bobby, just want to say thank you for the great content. I know we all appreciate the knowledge that you have and share. Hope to do this live stream again. Dude, well, thank you so much, man. I'm happy to hear that you dig the content. It means the world to me. Thank you so much. Curtis says, thanks, Bobby. I am really enjoying this. I'm a noob to recording with DAWs. In regards to guitars, do you prefer to use delays before or after the amp plugin? Good question. It depends on the sound I'm going for. If I want a more dirty, kind of like pedally sounding delay, I'll use it before the amp sim, right? If I want it to sound a little more studio-like, more like meaning like the delay's cleaner, kind of like when you stick a delay unit in your effects loop on your amp, I would stick it in post. Most of my delays are in post, to be honest with you. But if I'm doing like an indie rock band and I want a vibed out kind of delay thing, then maybe I'll do it pre plugin. But it depends. But I'll always track clean DIs. Always. If I record, it's funny. One of my buddies, Mr. Dom Higgins, shout out to Dom Higgins, just texted me yesterday asking about this, where he was wondering if when recording the DIs at his house, should he print the pedals? And if it's crazy, probably not. I would split my signal where I'm recording a pure DI, right, with like clean DI, and then I would record also the pedals simultaneously with a DI box. And then that way you have both that you could choose from, so you're always covered with that clean DI. Because you might decide, oh my God, that delay is distorting my DI signal too much or whatever, you know, like you want to always have a safety net there. So that's my opinion with that. Good question. Okay, I'm catching up on this chat here. So Mr. Craig Uter says, hey Bobby, thanks for all your content. You've helped me immeasurably. I even bought some of your online courses. Well, dude, thank you so much. He says, thank you so much. You're a great teacher, producer, and I can't thank you enough. Dude, thank you so much. That means the world. That pumps me up, man. It pumps me to keep going. Hearing that you guys are achieving better results and making a real difference with your music is what keeps me motivated in life. It pumps me up, man. Hell yeah. Dude, thank you so much. I appreciate the support, and I'm glad to have been a help with your music and productions. Okay, so Nika says, live mix reviews would be cool. Huh. Maybe I'll do that. I actually thought about it's funny, man. 6 months ago, I actually brought that idea up in one of my videos, and people didn't seem to dig the idea, so I kind of just let it go fall by the wayside. But maybe I'll bring that back. Again, I'm doing it in the mix script just because it's clearly a more close knit group, so I feel like I could be of more value because I'm talking to people directly. You know, whereas on YouTube it's crazy. You know, just because it's so many, but. I'll keep that idea flowing around. I'm glad to hear there's some interest. Good stuff. I want to make sure I get everyone's comments here. Okay, so Michael says, I have taken some Wes audio units. You know the company, fantastic outboard. No, never heard of them, but sounds cool. It's funny, the one piece of gear I've been like thinking about, and it's probably not a smart thing to buy, is an old Tascam like budget console from late 70s. Oh, there's another YouTube channel I love. This is an exception. They're an audio production YouTube channel. And I can't remember what they're called, man. It's like a guy and a girl, and they do amazing retro 70s production. And the guy has all this sick retro gear. And he uses his old Tascam mixer and an old Tascam 8-channel tape machine, and he does amazing sounding records in his budget project studio for like that indie rock kind of like dirty retro stuff. Actually, one cool thing he does is he records drums, I think, digitally, and then bounces them down to tape, and it's so cool, man. So I've been thinking about buying that console, not because I need it. I'm not going to use it with clients. It makes from a business standpoint for me, for the bands I work with, it makes absolutely no sense. But it would be fun for like my own music to like mess around with that dirty old analogs. I like old 70s stuff personally. I love old horror. I just love that sound. But that's the one piece of gear I'm trying to not buy. But here's the downside: when you buy an old piece of gear like that, it has to be maintained. The pots are going to be dirty. Might have to have it. So there's that end of things. Plus, you could make it sound like that digitally anyway. You really can. I just like old stuff. Like I have VHS tapes. There you go. That's the kind of guy I am. Okay, guys, so I'm going to go for maybe another 20 minutes. It's popping in here, so I'll keep rocking. Okay, so Darren says, with endless amp sims out there, do you have any preferences, paid or free? Dude, I think I showed it earlier. I use the TSC Audio X50. It's my favorite one. I own other ones. It's really inexpensive, and it just sounds awesome. And I can load my own impulse response. It has a built-in tuner, has a built-in noise gate, has a built-in tube screamer. Good enough for me. So the TSC Audio X50, he hasn't updated it in a while, which concerns me, which means I might not be able to use it when I have to upgrade to my next version of my OS. But that's what I use. Okay, so Eric Vasquez says, recommend specs for bigger metal projects. A couple of amp sims, drums, vocals, maybe additional ear candy. Recommended specs. Dude, I use the same stuff on low budget projects. Like, I'm weird. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I don't talk about this on YouTube, but like, I don't care if I'm doing a band that like is a local band that no one's ever heard, or if I'm doing like a label project. To me, it's all the same thing. So I treat every band, even my own band, the same way. Right. And I'm at a point now where I'll only do a band if I absolutely love the music. I'm not going to work like, for example, hip hop people hit me up all the time, and I just say no. I don't want to do hip hop. I like listening to hip hop, especially old school hip hop, but I don't like producing hip hop. So for me, it doesn't matter if it's a low budget thing or a high You know, like for example, I'm doing that Tombs record. They're on Seasons. They're a label band. They're on Seasons of the Mist. I'm producing it in January. I'm going to treat Tombs just like I treat my own band and just like I treat a younger band. So amp sims, I use the same amp sims, the TSC Audio X50. Same bass amp sim, which I use the Sans amp. I probably have it here. I think. No, I don't have it here. Okay, but I usually use the Sans amp, stock one in Pro Tools. That's it. Same plugins. I record out of a budget project studio, so it's all the same for me. So I know it's not an exciting answer, but it's the truth. Thank you for your question. Okay. Vincent says, your energy is awesome. Dude, thank you, man. It's funny, I'm actually kind of tired today, too, because we're renovating our new house, and my girlfriend's dad, thank God, who's a very handy, he's actually an electrician. He's helped me put up sheetrock in our living room, and oh, man, that was a workout, dude. Like, putting up all that shit, I thought it was going to take 2 seconds. We couldn't find the studs because it's an old house, and oh, my God, so I'm like dialed back today. Man, you catch me when I'm hyper, forget about it. I'm dialed back a few notches, but dude, I appreciate that you appreciate my energy. Thank you. After today, after I eat lunch, I have to go and I have to paint a ceiling, another ceiling. So doing a lot of home reno stuff. Tommy Lee Music, dude, I like your name. He says, I think live mix reviews would be sick. I watch the Gear Gods one every Friday, and it's always a lot of fun. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, dude, Gear Gods is a great dude. I don't know his name, but he does videos on like his approach to songwriting and his song critique, and he's so on the money, man. So on the money. Like, writing riffs isn't writing songs. He's right about that, you know. And I think that kind of echoes back to what I was saying earlier. For me, music is about the songs. I don't care if it's brutal. I don't care if it's poppy. Yes, I grew up on metal, and my specialty is metal production, but I just like good songs. That's me. And he kind of, I think, has that same mentality, and I love listening to his song critiques. I think he's a genius, and I think he's right on the money. So I do watch his channel. I haven't seen it. It's whatever the algorithm recommends on my TV, because all I watch is YouTube. I don't even watch any other. We don't even have cable. We just have the internet. So yeah, I love his stuff. All right, moving right along. So Cold Majki, what's the most important takeaway from your career at this point? Production or making wise or just in general? Dude, I love this question, man. Oh, don't get me started. I was thinking about this today. For me, if I were to go back and do everything all over again, I would not work with bad clients. Here's the problem. When you do this, when you're starting out, you want to say yes to everybody because you think it's going to be experience. You think it's going to serve you well. Dude, not all clients are created equal, and not everybody respects your talents and your time. Some of the worst people I've worked with are the cheapest. They're not prepared. They're hard to work with. They're crazy. And this is a small percentage, by the way. Most of the people I work with now are, dude, perfect example. My friend Addison in here is one of my best friends. And we met through working together in the studio. He actually hit me up on MySpace, and I worked with his band. So working with people like that is what I'll do now. It's got to be someone I'm friends with. It's got to be someone that I jive with on a personal level. So if I were to do it all over again, I would only work with bands that I really like as far as their music. Nothing's perfect, okay? Every record is going to have challenges. It's never going to be the rainbows and daisies all the time. But that's what I would do. I would have the grit and the courage to say no to people more, because I used to say yes to everyone, and I wasted so much time, man, so much time. It's a learning experience, but it took me long to learn that lesson. And I think the guys that really kill it in this industry, they're not scared to push forward, and they're not scared to just go after what they want and say no to people that are going to waste their time. You know, like, for example, I respect old school black metal. Like, I respect everything. My buddy Ben loves that stuff. I personally don't understand it. And I've said yes to black metal bands, and it did not go well at all. Like, we're in the studio, and like, I don't know why they would ask me to produce them, because my records do not sound like that, but stuff like that I should not have taken, you know? Or like, maybe if there's an old dirty punk band, not my cup of tea, really, you know? But for example, a band like Poeta, who I'm really good friends with, I love their music. I'm a fan of their actual music. So when I work with them, it's a dream, because I almost feel like I'm working on my own. I love it. Let me just simplify it. When I work on a record that I feel like it's my own music and I care about it that much, then I know I'm doing the right thing. That's what I should have done from earlier on, right? And it took me way too long to figure that out. It took me until my 30s to finally have the mindset of doing that. So that's my one takeaway. Hopefully that helps. Again, that's if you're looking to produce bands. If you're looking to work on your own music, different story, but like that's what I have taken away from the many years of doing this. Yeah, thank you for your question. Okay, moving right along. Oh, so Tommy Lemieux, I saw Tascam has cassette tapes you can buy, but they're like $12 a pop. Yeah, well, the tape machine that he uses, the producer I mentioned, he uses it's 8-track, like reel-to-reel tape. I'm more interested in the console, but I mean, dude, realistically, where am I going to put it? Am I really going to work that into my workflow? Probably not. It's going to be a big waste of time and money, but I like old stuff, man. I started a side business called Frightbox Productions. I haven't started the YouTube yet, but I am going to start the YouTube where it's all live performances out of my studio. And the look that I want is old, early 80s, late 80s horror. Like when the bands are performing, it looks like it's shot in the 80s. And I spent so much time getting that look down, and I've gotten it. And like that makes my heart sing. So that's my goal. I just love old stuff. I'm weird. But then again, a lot of people like old. Look at Stranger Things, right? So there's something to that old stuff, man. A lot of new stuff is just too clean. Dude, as amazing as the new Predator movie was, I just don't like CGI. Like, it was great. It was probably the best Predator, at least since Predator 2. I just don't like CGI. It doesn't look right to me. Whereas, like, yes, if you watch the old Terminator, the first Terminator, or the old Predator, actually, the old Predator, I think every effect in that movie is amazing. But, like, for example, the old Terminator from 1984, some of those effects are dated. I like those more than CGI. That's just me. But then again, it's almost kind of like how a lot of the old school metal guys hate modern production. It's the same thing, right? So it's always what you grew up with. That's usually how it goes. Okay, moving right along. Are there any other drum samples you would recommend besides Easy Drummer? I'm currently using Easy D, but sometimes I feel like I like something a little more cinematic or big oomphy. Dude, I only use Easy Drummer. A company sent me something else to check out that I'm excited to check out that I might be reviewing on the channel. I haven't checked it out yet though. I hear great things about Ergotone drums. And my buddy Lee, who I'm actually going to be on his channel tomorrow, Lee Armitage, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Maybe I'll leave a link or I'll promote it on this channel. I'm going to be doing a live stream on his channel tomorrow, and he uses the Ergotone drums, and they sound so sick. They're a little more warm. They're warmer, but they're different. It's, again, I just love Easy Drummer. I know how to use it, and I get everything I want out of it. So that's just my own opinion. Oh, computer specs. All right, so Eric is asking about specs for computers. Dude, my computer I use at the studio is a 2012 MacBook Pro with 16 gigs of RAM, solid state drive, and I still run entire sessions on it. I record live bands with it. I record full albums. The Tombs record I'm recording in January is going to be recorded on that machine. It's 10 years old. You don't need a crazy computer for audio production. I don't get it. People are always like, oh, I'm running out of CPU. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, a lot of these new amp sims eat up an absurd amount of CPU, but I don't use new amp sims. So it doesn't really affect me. The Slate stuff is really efficient. I just want to say this. So as far as like I'm a huge fan of the Slate Everything All Access bundle, the Slate Digital All Access bundle, because you get all of his plugins in one place, and they're so CPU efficient. And also, I get everything for I think it's like $20 a month, $15 a month or something like that. So it's so worth it. But again, it's efficient. I like efficient plugins. So that's a big thing. Make sure you're using efficient plugins. Okay, so Bag of Schmidt asks, how do you know when you're good enough to start mixing other people's music and charging money? I still don't think I'm good enough. All right, like it never ends. You're always learning. Do your own music first, get used to it, and then just offer it to people you like. If people are complimenting your work, that's what happened with me. I only cared about doing my own music, and then people were like, where'd you go to record? I'm like, well, I did it. And they're like, will you record us? And I'm like, I guess. And that's how it started. So there's no right, you're always going to be learning. Again, I've been doing this for 16 years. I'm still coming up with new techniques. I'm still learning. I'm still perfecting my craft. I'm getting into new types of production. So it's an ongoing process, right? Like anything else in life, you just grow and grow and grow, just like you would be on your instrument as a musician. So good question. Wow, Riverwood! So happy to hear from you. So Riverwood says, love your content. Our last album is literally made by your informative videos. Dude, I'm so happy to hear that. And I love the music. You sent me some killer tracks. And to know that I've helped you in some way to help produce that result makes my decade. So happy to hear that. Thank you. my God, EJ! My buddy EJ, I've worked with him in the studio. He was in a band. I forgot it on the last stream. I couldn't remember the name of the band. EJ, hold on. No, I'm not going to cheat. Six Fulton. EJ's a great musician, great group of guys. Hey man, it's EJ. Miss working with you. Has a band come in with their tone and you had to change it because it wasn't working? Or do you try your best to get it to work? I'm going through that now. Very few bands say, usually it's inexperienced bands that say we want their tone, and it's usually a bad tone. I've just in my opinion. A lot of the guys that, all right, let me give you an example. So I just did the Poeta record, and they brought in their Mesa. They use like Mesa combos. They're a cool band because they're heavy, but they're also poppy, and they also have a lot of like indie rock elements. So I wanted to capture their sound. So I didn't want to use my typical rig on some of the songs I did and some of the songs I didn't. And they brought in their Mesa Boogie combo amp. I don't remember. It's like can't remember what model. It's not a rectifier, but I wanted to capture their sound, right? So I asked them to bring their amp in. But if somebody's like, I want to use my sound and it's a Line 6 Spider, no, we're not we're not doing that. I have had it in my younger years where if a band wanted their sound, I would let them record it, but I would also steal a DI and then I would mix it with a good sound and nobody complained. So I would do that. So EJ, give that a shot. Capture the DI and then blend in a good guitar tone with the crappy one if their tone is not good, right? And they're not going to know. And it's going to just make the album sound great. Yeah, because that's the thing, Oh, no, here's one example. I've done some grindcore bands that use that MH2 pedal, metal pedal. To me, it sounds horrendous. So I'll record it, but then I'll blend in like my tone with it, and they love it. So always go that route. That's what I do. Yes, Tommy Lee Music says CGI is cool when done right, but practical effects for the win all day. Yeah. Totally true, man. There have been times where like I've watched a movie and there's CG and I had no idea until I watched the making of documentary, and I prefer that. But like, yeah, the new Predator movie, like the bear, the snake, like what the hell? Like it pulls me out of the experience, Dude, even the Predator himself in the new movie, there's some channel that showed what it looked like before they CG'd his face and it looked awesome. Like, why'd you add CG to that? Like the practical effects in the movie looked great and then they covered it with CG. I don't understand it. But again, I'm getting older. I'm pushing 40. So like I came from I like the old school stuff. But again, younger kids might look at the old Predator and be like, oh, that's cheesy. And they like the CGI. So it's all perspective, I guess. But I agree with you. Oh, okay, so Cold Magic Key says, did you get hooked up by Slate or did you shoot them a message, if I can ask? Well, no. Well, the thing is, I've always been a fan of Slate at using it at other studios. So the connection just happened naturally, to be honest with you. Same thing here with like, I use other plugins because with YouTube, you get more and more exposure and then you make connections with the people that you are currently using. The thing is, I'm not a gear person. So I'm only going to review products on my channel favorably that I actually use. Okay. I just want to make that crystal clear because I get very excited very rarely about gear. Like I have friends that are gear nuts and they show me stuff. I'm like, wow, who cares? Because I think a lot of it is psychological, but things like the Slate products are, in my opinion, they're actually amazing tools and very cost effective. So I want to save people money and I want to show them tools that I use and that I think are very beneficial. Same thing with Jordan's plugins. Dude, his clipper is great because you could set the threshold without changing the gain structure. Like a lot of the clippers, I have to increase the gain and I don't like that. I want to keep the gain as it is, but clip it. Maybe there are other clippers that do that. I've never seen them, and the Black Salt Audio Clipper does that. It just makes sense with my brain. So I think it's simple, it's affordable. So I'll talk about that product on my channel. So, but yeah, it's a natural relationship that forms just from being exposed, if that makes sense. Okay. So the new neural stuff will completely obliterate any CPU. Yeah, I don't know why. To me, most of these amp sims, maybe they're amazing and I've just never heard them, but I'm happy with what I have right now. Matthew Lachance says, is there an easy drummer expansion you like to use the most? I currently have a metal one I've been using, but wondering if there's a better... Dude, I've been using the Metal Machine pack for like over a decade and I love it. And for metal stuff, I always use that one. Sometimes I'll replace it with my own samples later, but I just love the way it sounds. And then for other stuff, I'll use the Bob Rock one. No, not the Bob Rock, the Randy Staub kit. But mainly the Metal Machine is the one I use most. All right, guys, I'm going to go for about 10 more minutes and I got to eat some lunch and I got to paint my ceilings. So Tommy Lee Music asks, with the amp sims, just find a tone you like and print the track down so you don't burn your CPU. Yeah, dude, that's what I do. That's what I treat my amp sims just like I do live amps. Save CPU and keeps things streamlined. Chase West says, will you do more content on tracking and getting good sounds at the source? Dude, you are reading my mind. That's something I really want to do, and I'm going to do. The hard thing with YouTube, with at least it seems with the algorithm, is unfortunately your channel gets associated with certain keywords. So I feel like whenever I do a video that's not mix related, like nobody sees it. So I have to be smart with the way I name the video for I want you guys to see it. I want my subscribers to see it and gain value from it. So whenever I talk about editing or tracking, it's like crickets. I don't know if it's no one as a whole is interested in that, but it is important. So I don't care if it gets views or not. I'm going to start doing it more because that is the real secret to good production. And of course, mixing and everything else. But yeah, I'm going to do more tracking related videos. Again, I'm producing that record in January and I'm thinking about doing like a studio vlog and actually documenting it. That's a thought that's crossed my mind. As long as I get clearance from the label and clearance from the band, if they're cool with it, which I'm sure they'll be fine with. I'm excited for that. That pumps me up. That's one of my plans for the future. I want to branch out the channel and do other things. And that's one of my plans. So I'm glad to hear that you want that from me because that's something I do want to do. Even if I'm doing it for a small group of people, I don't care. I love it. I love talking about production as a whole. Mixing is great. Don't get me wrong, but I love the I just love the whole package of production. The whole package. Good stuff. Okay, so Castle Ultra says, I found the best way when starting out is to do possibly one song for free. And if the band likes it, they will you hit on something here. They will be more than happy to pay you for more songs. And if not, then move on, keep going. Dude, 100%. I actually did a single for a band for free. Let me just tell you guys a little short story. I did a whole entire live training in the Mix Crypt on gaining clients. And this is a little snippet I shared that I haven't shared on YouTube, I don't think. I'll just share it now. So in 2017, I was noticing a lot of the younger bands weren't going to me. I still had my old clients, the older guys that were my age, a little younger, a little older, but like a lot of the younger bands just weren't going to me. I was like, well, what's going on? Am I not cool anymore? What's up? And I realized there's a new generation of metal kids in my area that just didn't know of me because they're not associated with the bands that I work with. So I was playing shows, filling in for one of my buddy's bands at the time, and there was this band called, oh my God, hold on, drawing a blank. Kevin, if you're watching, Kevin's in the band. Chris, the drummer. I can't remember what they're called right now. I'm so drawing a blank. I keep wanting to say Putrescension, but it's not Putrescension. I can't think of the name of it. It'll come to me randomly during this call. But anyway, they were amazing. Really cool. They kind of reminded me of that band Death, but like modern. I liked them so much. I went out to them, guys. I'm like, I want to produce you. Let me do a single. They came. I did the single. That one free single led to like, I don't know, 4 different projects from that one single because the guys are in different bands. So I ended up working with the drummer in a different band. I ended up working with the guitar player in 2 different bands and then multiple releases with each band. So if you do a good job with one single, now here's the thing, you don't go to a band saying, I'll do your album for free. Unless you want to work for free, I don't suggest that. Do one small thing to demonstrate your value and it works. You know, I've done that. I've only done it a handful of times, only if I really want to go after the band. But it works, especially if you're starting out. So, Psycharian. That's the name of the band. If you guys want to check it out, just go on YouTube and type in Psycharian. Yeah, Psycharian. I don't remember how to spell it. It's like Sycarian. I did the last single. Came out like 3 years ago. Check it out. Cool. Kev, if you're watching, hi. I miss working with you, man. Good stuff. He's in a new band. I don't remember what they're called. I mixed their new album or EP. I don't think they had a band name when I mixed it. I'm terrible with names, guys, because you got to realize as a producer, you're working with the working titles. So, for example, when I work with Tombs, I have all the funny working titles, and then I don't even know the real song names because they pick it like later when they're doing the artwork and when they're sending it in to the label and things. But yeah, that's that story. Cool. Okay, throat's starting to go on me, so I'm going to go a little longer. Okay, so Sean says, what do you think sounds better, mastering with hardware versus mastering with plugins? Any difference? There is no difference. What I've learned when working with mastering engineers is like the mastering engineer should have to do next to nothing to your mix. If he has to do a bunch of fancy stuff, then the mix is not good. And And I have mixed feelings about mastering engineers. I've had mastering engineers butcher my mixes to the point where like I just prefer to master my own work. Sometimes the label wants to go to a mastering engineer. Sometimes there's a mastering engineer that the band likes to work with. Then I just let it go. You know, again, it's their music, right? But it doesn't matter. I've heard, you know, like it's the same thing with plugins. These days, a lot of these guys, I have a friend who's a really good mastering engineer, Kevin, can't remember his last name, but he has a great, I love working with him because he's really subtle with his approach. I think he's all plugins now. So a lot of these guys are moving to plugins as well. Doesn't matter. Okay. So Christian asks, hey, do I need to turn down input gain or guitar volume when recording EMG Kirk pickup set? I wouldn't turn down your guitar volume. You want to keep that guy wide open. Just make sure you're not clipping on the way in. Again, I put up a video recently called Tracking Guitars or something. It came out, if you go on my page, my YouTube channel, and go back a few videos, I did a video on how I track and set levels. It's extremely straightforward. Just don't clip on the way in. Barian says mainly the old horror movies are better, or old movies are better because nowadays they just repeat the old concepts and do superhero stuff. Yeah, man. Well, I loved the new Joker. I thought that was, but then again, it feels like an old movie. That's why I liked it. I thought the new Batman movie was pretty cool. Again, I thought the new Predator was cool. I just didn't like the CG in it. That was my only complaint. But the movie itself was great. I love Hereditary. There's a movie called Hereditary that came out a few years ago, and also Midsummer. I think that's like true horror. Like that's not even fun horror, like Friday the 13th. No, that's like horror. Like I saw it once. Don't need to see it again, but it's a true horror film. I thought it was phenomenal. And it was like covering new ground. So there are new great, just like there's new great music out there, there's new great movies, but it's just depends on your and your preferences. Danny McCarthy Thompson, thanks for coming in. So good to see you. Okay, guys, the last few comments here. Hey, Bobby, I see you use the PV5150 real amp and amp sim, but have you ever tried to do a rectifier? Yes, I use, actually, when I work with, again, back on Tombs, when I do Tombs records, we blend a 5150 and a Mesa. Actually, the last album, I reamped through both, and I think I only used the Mesa. Here's the thing with Mesas, man. They're hit or miss. The dual Rex and the triple Rex, I've had ones that sound so good. I have a friend from this band, Me With Creeps, that I've played with. His sounds phenomenal, his triple rec or dual rec. And then I've had ones that sounded like complete not good, right? They don't sound good. So they're really intermittent. I don't know what's up with that. 5150s are way more consistent for me. They have their own character. I think the mid-range is a little more forgiving on the 5150, but I do blend it too, and I do use other amps. I'll use oranges from time to time. I'll use like the old 800s. But dude, you give me a 5150 Mesa cab. I know everyone says, oh, everybody's using the same stuff. I can come up with infinite tones with that one rig. I'm happy with it. So that's all I need. I don't care if it's rock, metal, death metal, grindcore. Give me that and I'm happy. Thank you for your question. Seista de Kriga says, hey, do you have experience with something like Locky Bass or Submission Bass? No, man, I've never used it. The only bass software I've used are like if I'm working with a band and they use their own. Actually, maybe I've used it indirectly. I have a buddy who I've mixed a bunch of work for where Tony Barham, shout out to Terry Barham and Legionary, my buddy Frank from Legionary. They do a lot of program bass and they use some plugin. I don't know what it is, but he prints it and sends me to print the track. So I don't even know what plugin it is. But for me, I just use Easy Bass. I think Easy Bass is awesome. So that's it. If they're using Locky Bass, I have no idea. And Submission Bass, I've never even heard of. But there you go. That's my answer. Okay, so Matthew LaChance says, thanks for answering all these questions today. You rock. Keep up the awesome videos. Dude, thank you so much. And thank you for watching the content. Noporius, hey, Bobby, question for you. Have you heard of STL Control Hub? And if so, what are your thoughts on it? I don't know, man. Maybe I even have it. I have something hub. Amp Hub? I have Amp Hub. I don't know if that's Control Hub. I don't have experience with Control Hub. David Scaffoldy and Mixed Crypt member. Dude, thank you for coming. I'll be seeing you on Saturday during our live call as well. Thank you for coming to this live call. Barons, also, why do you say time to time Joseph Gordon-Levitt? Barons, how are you hearing this? I'm curious. These are things I say, like, in real life. I don't say this on YouTube. How do you know these things? I'm curious to know, Mr. Barons. Joseph Gordon-Levitt. That's phenomenal that you know that. That's like something I say in the studio, but I don't think I've ever shared that on YouTube. Let me know. I'm curious to know. How do you know these things about me? Do you have like a secret camera in my studio hearing what I say? No, I'm just joking. But I mean, I want to know. How do you know? But I'll explain. Joseph, okay. Let me just back this up. When you're around the same guys and you work with them album after album, EP after EP, year after year, you come up with these weird sayings and lingo and inside jokes. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt is based off of Gordon Ramsay, which is based off of Jeff Gordon, which is based off of Golden, which is based off. It goes back and back and back to these old inside jokes that we've had that mutate and morph into other inside jokes. That's what it is. So hopefully that makes sense. Yes, David Scoffity says, Bogren Bass Knob. I've never tried it, but I've heard phenomenal things, but one day I will get to use it. Baron says, the last good superhero movie I've seen was Logan from 2017. I heard it was really good. I've heard that as well. Man, I was shocked to know Johnny Cash covered The Hurt by Nine Inch Nails. I was blown away. So, yes, Baron, you still haven't answered me how you know about Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I'm just so curious to know. Well, guys, this has been fun. We've been going for over 2 hours. I thought this was going to be maybe 45 minutes to an hour. I'm so happy to hear that you guys have had fun. Hopefully, I've gotten to most of your questions. I apologize if I missed some. There were just so many in the chat. Maybe one day I'll do one of these again. But again, if you're interested in having a brand new song and multi-tracks every single month, and if you're interested in being part of our community where we critique each other's mixes and where you get to meet with me twice a month, one to critique your mix and also for a call kind of like this, except a little more intimate and a little more direct. The Frightbox Mix Crypt is open until tomorrow night at midnight. At midnight, the doors will close. There's a link below in this video's description. And if it's something you'd be interested in or might be interested in, you could join right now. The doors are currently open for the next day. So... Oh, wait, so Baron says you say this stuff on your vlogs, say studio tour or day in the life. Wow, dude. Man, you're a fan. That's a deep cut. Man. Well, yeah, all right. So yeah, it's just inside joke stuff. Just from the guys that I know in the studio. So good stuff. So Thomas says you are a G for this. Dude, thank you so much, man. Thanks for coming. Yeah, Young Thing Buemo. Dude, you know what? You sent me a question and I'm going to answer it. And I actually have it here. All right, my allergies are bothering me, but I'm gonna answer it. So you say, hey, Bobby, I have a MIDI drum question for you for your next VQA. I've seen videos by famous mixers all talking about LCR panning, even for drums. However, my guess is if you're using two overhead mics, even if you pan those two mics 100% left, 100% right, the individual cymbals will sound like they're panned maybe 50-30, since both mics will be picking up a bit of everything. Yes, you are right. There is crosstalk naturally between overhead mics. So it's not real LCR, but I guess that takes away the headache of having to figure out where to pan my individual cymbals. Dude, just pan them out. Like everybody overthinks this thing. So pan them out. Now, if you're using program drums, you're at the mercy of the engineer that recorded them, the samples. But experiment. If they sound too wide, then pan them in. If they don't sound too wide, leave them out. Most of the time when I'm doing organic drums that I recorded or if an engineer recorded it in the real world, I'll pan them out because there's going to be natural crosstalk. And with all these amazing tools we have now as far as MIDI drums, there's going to be natural crosstalk between the two overheads. Pan them out. If they sound good, leave them. If they sound too wide, which is very rare, pan them in. That's my approach. So let me finish your question. So with MIDI drums, that's going to give you control over individual cymbals. How would you pan them? Again, I would pan them out wide unless they sound too wide. Going full wide sounds weird, right? It depends. It depends how the samples were recorded. Maybe, maybe not, probably not. Specifically, okay, if you're working with a drum machine from like 1999 and all the cymbals are literally separate cymbals, yeah, you don't want to pan them out because there's no crosstalk and they're going to sound like they're coming from two different universes. Then you pan them in. But if it's something like Easy Drummer or Superior Drummer or Get Good Drums or Slate Drum, then try them out wide first. And if they're too wide, pan them in. Hi-hats, crashes, Chinas, I usually pan out wide because, again, there's crosstalk. Hi-hats, I pan out wide because there's crosstalk. Also, toms and floor toms, I do not hard pan. That's one of the exceptions, and I'm going to show you right now in this mix. Let's take a listen to a roll, like a drum roll here. Let's find a lot of toms in this song, a lot of toms. Let's check it out. Okay, a lot of toms as far as tom performance. He only had two toms, but I double mic'd them. So if we look at the panning on my toms, it's one of the few exceptions where I don't hard pan. My rack tom. I think of the drummer in front of me, and I pan according to where the toms are in the real world. So in this case, the rack tom is more like not 100% right, but like 50% right. So I have the rack tom panned here, 45% right, and the floor tom is panned about 70% left. There you go. That's one of the only, for me personally, I'm an LCR guy. I really only pan toms in or like leads. 85 to 90% of my mixes is panned out wide. People obsess about model compatibility, dude. Some of the best mixers on earth are LCR mixers. Jordan Valerian is. I think Chris Lord-Alge is, if I'm not mistaken. If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. Great question. Okay, so Barron's asked if I'll save the stream. I think I'm gonna. This was a success, so I think I'm gonna. I think I'm gonna save it. Yeah, it's gonna be saved either way. I might chop it up, but I might just leave the whole thing up for everybody to watch. It's been a lot of fun. So Shay says, earlier you mentioned something about mixing at the source. You're gonna get better feedback from live video than from a posted video, Bobby. Okay, cool. I'll keep that in mind. Vincent says, hopefully I'll do this again. I'm thinking about it, man. I'm glad you guys liked it. I had a lot of fun. All right, so Noporia says STL Control Hub, basically a signal chain you could put on your mix channels that mimics the same original signals as very known producers like Will Putney, Mark Lewis, and others. Very cool. All right, man, awesome. I didn't even know that was a thing, so sounds cool. I'll give it a shot. Shay says ASMR, poor eating dude, don't spam. Oh, man. Oh, yeah, a lot of comments from poor eating, yeah. Yeah, try not to spam, but let me see what he said. He says, new video upload, host, help me. Please all join, thanks. Oh God, yeah, it is spam. ASMR, why are you spamming this upload? Oh my God, now I gotta figure out how to remove it. Oh my God, spam. I get spam calls on my phone. I get spam messages on Facebook when we're trying to sell furniture. I get spam here. What's with these robots? Okay, so Light Stitch Sirius says, leave the whole thing up. Okay, guys, this has been a blast. Maybe one day I'll do it again. But for now, every month I'm doing it in the Frightbox Mix Crypt. At the end of each month, we do our live coaching call. We also do member mix reviews, multi-tracks every month, new song every month. It's a great time. If you're looking to up your production and you're looking to join a community that's actually supportive and positive and where we actually help each other and give feedback on real world productions, the Mix Crypt is open till tomorrow night at midnight. Check it out. You can learn more about it through the link in this video's description. And if you've been interested, I know here's the thing, a lot of people ask me about it when it's closed. So I wanted to make it known that it's open now. It's open until tomorrow night. And then I'm gonna close it until the next round. But yeah, just wanted to mention that. Guys, again, thank you so much. Thanks for coming to the very first Frightbox live stream on the channel. And I think I'm gonna keep it up. So guys, thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. And until next time, happy mixing. Have a good rest of the week. See you guys later.